Welcome to Control Your Reactions, Change Your Life, a profound journey into the most powerful skill a human being can possess, the mastery of your emotional responses. What if I told you that the quiet refusal to react, when everything within you screams to explode, defend, or prove, is a greater display of strength than any loud declaration? What if the person who dictates their reactions truly dictates the direction of their life? This is not just a philosophy. It is a blueprint for an existence defined by choice, not impulse. Our emotions, often hailed as sacred inner guides, are in truth ancient biological programs designed for a world that no longer exists, world where immediate fight or flight responses were paramount for survival. But in today's complex landscape, these automatic emotional reactions are sabotaging your success, eroding your relationships, and trapping you in cycles of regret. Every day, countless decisions are made based on fleeting feelings. A triggered comment sparks a regrettable retort. An overwhelming task leads to abandoning a goal. Anxiety stifles a career-defining opportunity, or anger destroys years of built trust. You are being subtly controlled by the very chemical reactions in your brain, often without realizing the profound cost. But there is another path, known by the highest achievers and the most respected figures throughout history, the ability to feel an emotion, acknowledge it, and then consciously choose a response rooted in logic, strategy, and long-term vision, rather than primitive impulses. This is not about becoming emotionless or suppressing your feelings. It is about reclaiming sovereignty over your life by mastering the crucial space between stimulus and response. That is where your power resides. That is where your future is forged. My own journey in writing about emotions revealed this truth firsthand. There were moments of excitement, envisioning how readers' lives would transform, but then came the struggle, the safe doubt, the feeling of having nothing valuable to contribute. It was a stark reminder. We all experience highs and lows. The key is what we do with our lows. Do we use emotions to grow, to learn, or do we allow them to beat us down? This audiobook is the instruction manual your parents should have given you, the guide your teachers never taught. It is a practical exploration of how your reactions build your identity, shape your reputation, and influence every opportunity that comes your way. You will discover how to remain calm in conflict, resist provocation, starve drama, regulate your emotions, stop seeking external validation, and let your results speak louder than any explanation. Applying the principles within these chapters, people will not just notice an improvement in you, they will be unable to recognize the former version of yourself. This profound transformation begins with a single, unwavering decision. You will no longer sacrifice your power for short-term reactions. You will practice the art of controlling your reactions so that your life is dictated by deliberate choice, not impulsive emotion. The more control you assert, the more respect you earn from others, and more importantly, from yourself. This is the art of self-mastery. This is the path to an unrecognizable future. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Stop letting others control your buttons. In the grand theater of life, there are always forces at play attempting to seize control of your emotional buttons. People, situations, and environments, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, will poke, prod, provoke, and test you. And here is the stark truth. If you react automatically, impulsively, they gain control. Not necessarily over your entire destiny, but certainly over that moment, your emotions, and the trajectory of your day. And that, in itself, is far from a small thing. Consider the ripple effect. If someone can dictate your emotional reactions today, they can influence your decisions tomorrow. Think of how often your entire mood shifts because of a single comment, a subtle tone, an unexpected attitude, or someone else's behavior. Seemingly innocent sentence from a colleague can unravel an entire afternoon. A single, poorly delivered criticism can extinguish the flame of excitement for a cherished goal. A minor disagreement can swiftly escalate into an overreaction, causing months of damage to a valuable relationship, all because an unprotected emotional button was touched, giving away a piece of your inner sovereignty. The core objective of this chapter, and indeed much of our journey, is to empower you to safeguard these vital buttons and, in doing so, reclaim absolute control over your reactions. This requires a dual awareness, recognizing the control others attempt to exert over you, and more critically, understanding the control you allow them to have. Many individuals remain oblivious to this second, more profound form of control, yet it is where true strength is born. You cannot, and should not, expect to stop the world from trying to influence you. Life is not designed to be gentle, perfectly predictable, or always fair. It is, by its very nature, a dynamic and often challenging environment. However, what you can do, what you must do, is train yourself to deny access to your emotional system. This is the starting point of authentic personal power. There is a timeless concept worth imprinting on your mind. Provocation only works on the untrained. Someone can provoke you, dismiss your efforts, or underestimate your capabilities. But the subsequent choice, whether to respond impulsively or with strategic foresight, whether to react from a place of fragile ego or with calm intention, whether to surrender your power or retain it, that choice is always, unequivocally, yours. Even when it feels absent in the heat of the moment, it is there, and with consistent practice, that choice becomes not just available, but easier, a natural extension of your refined identity. One of the most insidious traps people stumble into is overreacting to stimuli that simply do not warrant their precious energy. Not every comment demands a counter-argument. Not every perceived slight requires confrontation. Not every battle that appears on your horizon is worth fighting. The fundamental question you must learn to ask is this: does reacting serve me? Does it advance my objectives? Does it move me closer to my cherished goals? If the honest answer is no, then that reaction is not a display of power. It is, in fact, a weakness meticulously disguised as strength. Impulse, though it often feels potent and satisfying in the immediate present, almost invariably produces weak, regrettable, or counterproductive long-term results. When you deliberately stop allowing others to control your emotional buttons, a fascinating phenomenon begins to unfold. People start to recalibrate their approach to you. They cease employing the same manipulative tactics. They gradually lose the ability to hijack your emotional system. They recognize that you are no longer an easy target, not effortlessly triggered. This creates an undeniable shift in how you are perceived and how, consequently, how you are treated. Human beings inherently respect those who cannot be easily swayed or manipulated. They respect those who demonstrate the foresight to think before they react, those who can withstand a verbal attack without crumbling, and those who can withstand an insult without losing their composure. This refined behavior does not render you passive or inert. On the contrary, it makes you powerfully selective. You move from reacting blindly to thoughtfully responding. You choose your battles with surgical precision, rather than being indiscriminately dragged into every skirmish that presents itself. You learn to internalize the potent question: is this truly worth my energy? And with growing maturity, you will find that most of the time, the answer is a resounding no. This no is not a sign of weakness. It is the hallmark of profound growth, the signature of emotional maturity. It is the very genesis of becoming unrecognizable to the former version of yourself, the one carried by every wave of external influence. The journey toward this mastery is a progression. Control germinates from awareness. Awareness, meticulously cultivated, leads to consistent practice. Practice, diligently applied, solidifies into genuine strength, and that strength, deeply ingrained, eventually transforms into an unshakable identity. This is how you reclaim your buttons. This is how you cease letting external forces dictate the course of your days. This is how you ascend from a state of emotional dependency to one of unwavering emotional leadership. Chapter 2. Feel the emotion. Do not obey it. Every single reaction, every impulsive word, every regrettable action begins with a feeling. Something occurs in your external world, or internal system registers it, and an immediate spark of emotion ignites. It might be a flash of irritation, a pang of insecurity, a wave of fear, a surge of excitement, a flicker of jealousy, or even a swell of pride. This feeling rises with breathtaking speed, and for most people, the deeply ingrained assumption is that once the feeling manifests, the reaction must inevitably follow. Emotion, then reaction. This is the default, automatic sequence that governs countless lives. However, this sequence is not an immutable law of nature. It is merely a habit acquired and reinforced long before you gain the self-awareness to recognize its profound influence on the trajectory of your life. One of the most transformative and powerful skills you will ever cultivate is the capacity to feel without obeying, to experience the full spectrum of an emotion, yet resolutely refuse to be driven, compelled, or hijacked by it, to observe its rise within you, to pause, even for a fleeting moment, and to ask yourself, with genuine curiosity, what is this feeling attempting to make me do right now? That singular moment of questioning, that tiny interlude of conscious inquiry, is the fundamental distinction between the impulsive individual and the intentional individual. It is the chasm that separates reacting to life from actively directing your life. The vast majority of people do not struggle because they feel too intensely or too much. Their struggle stems from obeying too quickly, too automatically. They feel offended, so they immediately retaliate, often with sharp words or an aggressive stance. They feel anxious, so they avoid the very challenge that could unlock their growth. They feel jealous, so they engage in destructive comparison or sabotage. They feel insecure, so they retreat ahead. They feel challenged, so they instantly escalate the conflict. The emotion fires first, an unchecked missile, and the reaction follows without any conscious review, without any strategic filter. This is the insidious mechanism through which individuals inadvertently create unnecessary conflict, damage invaluable opportunities, and perpetually sabotage their own progress. Not because life is inherently cruel or unjust, but because they have never consciously learned to interrupt at automatic obedience between their internal emotional state and their external action. So, here is a foundational principle to engrave upon your mind. Emotions are signals, not commands. Signals exist to offer information. They inform you that something significant is happening within your internal landscape. A boundary has been crossed, an unfamiliar situation looms, a value is at stake, an insecurity needs addressing. They are messengers, conveying vital data. Do not make the mistake of shooting the messenger by suppressing it entirely. But crucially, do not worship the messenger by blindly obeying its every directive. Instead, listen intently, learn the information it conveys, and then, and only then, consciously choose your calibrated response. This is precisely where emotional maturity is meticulously built, brick by brick. Emotional maturity is not characterized by the absence of emotion, far from it. It is defined by the astute control of obedience. You can experience profound anger and yet choose not to explode. You can feel intense fear and still, deliberately, move forward. You can acknowledge a pang of jealousy without resorting to attacking another. You can feel deeply disrespected and still respond with unwavering dignity and composure. That is authentic power. The historical figures, leaders, business titans, and admired individuals you look up to were rarely those who never felt emotion. They were, almost without exception, those who steadfastly refused to let emotion command the steering wheel of their lives. There exists a pervasive myth that truly strong people are unfeeling, stoic, or devoid of deep emotional experiences. This is a dangerous misconception. Strong people feel deeply, they feel intensely, but their strength is manifested in their refusal to permit the first feeling to become the final decision. If you habitually obey every emotion that surges through your system, you are not in control. Your raw impulses are, and impulses, by their very nature, are not concerned with consequences. Impulses give no thought to reputation, to long-term growth, or to the intricate dance of strategy. Their singular directive is immediate relief, relief from discomfort, relief from uncertainty, relief from vulnerability. And critically, this pursuit of immediate relief is rarely, if ever, aligned with genuine, sustainable progress. To truly master this essential skill, your objective is not to eradicate emotion. Instead, it is to deliberately create a small, yet profound, distance from it, a minuscule space between what you instinctively feel and what you consciously choose to do. A space often measured in mere seconds, sometimes even in the slow, deliberate rhythm of deep breaths. That sacred space, that moment of conscious intercession, is where the trajectory of your life fundamentally changes. That space is where you make the powerful decision not to obey blindly. And that space, above all else, is the birthplace of timeless wisdom. Every wise individual you have ever encountered has, through consistent practice, cultivated the ability to pause just long enough for the initial emotional surge to cool, allowing logical, strategic thought to gently rise and inform their next move. Not because logic is inherently superior to emotion in all contexts, but because logic possesses the capacity to consider long-term consequences and core values, while unchecked emotion is primarily concerned with immediacy and primal survival. Here lies the truly beautiful part of this process. The more you diligently practice feeling without blindly obeying, the more profoundly confident you become in your inherent ability to skillfully navigate the complexities of life. And with the steady ascent of confidence comes an undeniable calm. And with that calm comes an elevated influence over your environment and your interactions. And with that influence comes a quiet, yet profound, respect from others. People instinctively trust those who can maintain their composure. They'll follow those who do not buckle or fold under the slightest discomfort. They look up to those who refuse to overreact to every emotional spark or external trigger. This hard-earned trust becomes an invaluable asset, a subtle yet powerful advantage, a potent form of leadership, both over your own internal world and in the esteem of those around you. None of this, let me be clear, advocates for the suppression of emotion. Emotional suppression is a dangerous path that inevitably leads to later, more destructive explosions. Suppression is merely pretending that you feel nothing while your internal world is burning with unacknowledged turmoil. That is not control. That is profound denial. True control involves consciously acknowledging the feeling, allowing it to exist, and then, with deliberate intention, choosing your measured response. You can candidly say, "I feel angry," without resorting to acting out in anger. You can acknowledge, "I feel afraid," without blindly obeying the directives of fear. You can articulate, "I feel disrespected," without immediately seeking revenge or retribution. And when you consistently practice this, you cultivate emotional discipline. And emotional discipline is the indispensable foundation upon which you will build the unrecognizable future version of yourself. The old version of you reacted with unthinking speed. A new version of you reacts with profound deliberation. The old version of you chased immediate emotional relief. The new version of you prioritizes meaningful, sustainable results. And the elegant transformative bridge between those two versions is the simple, yet monumentally powerful, skill of fooling the emotion, but resolutely refusing to obey it blindly. That is how authentic self-control truly begins. That is how your identity consciously evolves. That is how you meticulously start to live life on your own terms, rather than under the capricious orders of whatever emotion happens to surface. Chapter 3. Build the pause before you respond. The single most powerful moment in any interaction, in any potential reaction, is not the reaction itself. It is the microscopic, almost imperceptible pause that precedes it. That fleeting interval of stillness is precisely where the trajectory of your life is decided. It is the fulcrum upon which you either perpetuate old, self-defeating patterns or courageously forge new, empowering ones. For most people, the existence of this pause remains entirely unknown. Everything feels instantaneous. Someone delivers a disrespectful comment, and you immediately fire back. A colleague voices disagreement, and you instantly launch into a defense. Someone challenges your stance, and you instinctively escalate the conflict. The sequence feels automatic, unavoidable. However, if you consciously endeavor to slow down that perceived instant, even for just a couple of seconds, you will undeniably notice that there is always a minuscule, yet infinitely powerful, space between the external stimulus and your internal response. That space, that silent interstitial moment, is precisely where your control resides. The purpose of building this pause is not to become passive or indecisive. It is rather a strategic maneuver to buy invaluable time for the intelligent, discerning part of you to emerge and take precedence before the raw, impulsive, emotional part completely overtakes your actions. Emotion is lightning fast. Ego, with its brittle pride, is equally swift. Raw impulse races ahead without thought. But wisdom, true, strategic wisdom, requires a moment to gather itself, to assess, to obey consequences. And that moment, that crucial pause, is almost always within your reach. What you are learning here is not a technique to suppress or diminish the intensity of your feelings. It is, instead, a profound skill to interrupt your ingrained automatic reaction patterns long enough to consciously select a superior, more aligned response. That is the invaluable gift the pause bestows upon you. Choice, even a single second of deliberate pause, has the potential to fundamentally alter the outcome of an entire situation. 1 second to consciously breathe, 1 second to rapidly review the facts, 1 second to internally ask yourself, with unwavering honesty, "What's my truly about to do right now?" This may sound like a trivial increment of time, but the tragic reality is that most people never access that second. They catapult directly from external trigger to unthinking reaction, from raw emotion to unfiltered expression, from internal discomfort to immediate, often destructive, relief. And these rapid-fire reactions are the primary reason individuals remain perpetually stuck in cycles of unnecessary conflict, exhausting explanations, and pervasive regret. When you deliberately cultivate and build the pause, you effectively slow down the impulsive surge long enough to allow for a thoughtful consideration of potential consequences. You begin to ask whatever questions. Does this immediate reaction truly serve my long-term interests? Is this particular battle worth expending my precious energy on? Who ultimately benefits if I respond in this manner? How will I genuinely feel about this action tomorrow or a week from now? These questions do not ignore your authentic emotion. They skillfully regulate it. They do not kill your healthy pride. They actively protect it from foolish, self-sabotaging moves. They do not render you weak or vulnerable. They prevent you from hemorrhaging your strength in counterproductive directions. Observe genuinely powerful individuals, whether in historical accounts, contemporary leadership, or personal interactions. They rarely react with instantaneity. Instead, they listen intently, they observe meticulously, they process information thoroughly, and they take their time. Sometimes they even choose profound silence. And precisely because of this deliberate approach, their words carry significantly more weight, more authority, when they finally choose to speak. Their moments of silence are not indicative of confusion or a lack of understanding. They are a sign of internal preparation, of strategic calibration. Their pause is not hesitation. It is the epitome of self-control. This is why a calm, collected composure is often misinterpreted as a form of intellectual or social superiority. People assume that if you are not reacting with obvious emotion, you either do not care about the situation or are somehow unaffected by it. But the deeper truth is, you care enough to respond with wisdom and foresight instead of being impulsively swept away. Now, understand that the pause is not an inherent trait you are born with. It is a muscle, and like any muscle, it is developed and strengthened through consistent, intentional repetition. You do not have to achieve perfection from the outset. You begin by practicing in small, low-stakes moments first. When someone rudely cuts you off in traffic, when a friend makes a mildly irritating comment, when you receive a piece of constructive criticism at work, when a stranger exhibits discourteous behavior, when your ego feels a slight poke or challenge. These seemingly minor daily occurrences become your invaluable training sessions, your emotional dojo. And as you practice, you will begin to notice something profoundly interesting. When you consciously choose not to react impulsively, the world does not, in fact, end. There is no catastrophic explosion. There is no societal collapse. On the contrary, you often experience a surge of internal strength, a quiet confidence, precisely for not taking the bait, for not allowing yourself to be pulled into unnecessary drama. There is a timeless saying worth internalizing. If you can control the first 5 seconds, you can control the outcome. This is not an exaggeration. The vast majority of arguments are not won or lost in the logical progression of points, but in the chaotic, impulsive opening moments. Most conflicts are not determined by superior reasoning. They are determined by reaction speed. The faster the reaction, the less intelligent, less strategic, and less controlled the response tends to be. Conversely, the slower, more deliberate the reaction, the greater your capacity for control. The pause also serves as an indispensable safeguard, protecting you from uttering words you will inevitably regret. Words spoken in the heat of an emotional reaction are often words that inflict permanent wounds. Relationships are fractured and irrevocably damaged, not by thoughtful disagreement, but by the uncontrolled discharge of unfiltered emotion. Careers are sometimes ruined, not by a single failure, but by reactive, immature behavior under acute pressure. Opportunities are lost, not due to incompetence, but because of a catastrophic lack of composure at critical junctures. The deliberate pause is your crucial barrier, preventing you from transforming temporary feelings into permanent, unwanted outcomes. Some individuals harbor a fear of the pause, erroneously equating speed with strength. But strength, true strength, is not primarily about speed. It is about precise direction. A fast, impulsive reaction that propels you in the wrong direction inevitably creates damage and regret. A slower, more calibrated reaction, moving thoughtfully in the right direction, invariably creates a distinct advantage. And that advantage is infinitely more valuable and lasting than any fleeting moment of emotional satisfaction. As you progressively master the art of the pause, you will also perceive a subtle, yet profound, shift in your experience of life. It becomes less chaotic, less demanding. You cease to feel that every single external event demands your immediate, reactive attention. You stop feeling perpetually compelled to defend yourself at every turn. You are no longer controlled by the capricious whims of what others say or do. The pause evolves into your personal, highly effective filter. It empowers you to discern what truly deserves a response, and what can, and should, be allowed to pass by without engagement. It grants you the agency to choose your battles with strategic precision, rather than being indiscriminately dragged into every potential conflict. And eventually, seamlessly, it becomes an integral, undeniable part of your very identity. The old version of you reacted first and thought much later, if at all. The new version of you consciously thinks first and responds only when it is truly necessary, strategically advantageous, and aligned with your highest self. This deep-seated transformation does not manifest overnight, like a sudden lightning bolt, but it unfolds with remarkable rapidity once you commit to practicing it with unwavering intention. The pause, though seemingly small in its inception, is the catalyst for monumental, life-altering changes. It bestows upon you a quiet power, a potent and enduring form of influence that truly lasts. Chapter 4. Refuse the bait that triggers you. In every domain of human interaction, be it casual conversations, heated conflicts, professional workplaces, intimate relationships, and perhaps most overtly, the digital realm of online platforms, there exists pervasive element, bait. Bait is anything deliberately designed, or sometimes inadvertently offered, to lure you into reacting emotionally, defensively, or impulsively. It can manifest in myriad forms: an outright insult, a subtly provocative comment, a disrespectful tone, a veiled jab, a challenge to your competence, or even a seemingly innocuous compliment laced with a competitive undertone. The fundamental purpose of bait is remarkably simple: to elicit a reaction from you, because the moment you react, you relinquish a measure of will control. And once you lose control, even momentarily, someone else often subtly seizes the lead in the interaction, dictating its direction and energy. This is a fundamental understanding you must internalize. Not every provocation, no matter how skillfully crafted or irritating, genuinely warrants a reaction from you. Sometimes the bait is glaringly obvious. Someone speaks to you with overt rudeness or attempts to publicly embarrass you. Other times, it is far more subtle, like a pointed question that undermines your ability, or a comment designed to make you feel as though you need to constantly reprove your worth. But the instant you instinctively grab that bait, you unwittingly step into their frame of reference. You begin speaking their language, engaging in their chosen battle, rather than meticulously pursuing your own objectives. This is the precise mechanism by which power silently shifts, without any grand announcement or explicit declaration. People, in their unguarded moments, often take the bait for one primary, universal reason. The ego, that delicate construct of self-identity, absolutely loathes being challenged. When you feel genuinely misunderstood, unfairly dismissed, or over-tearly disrespected, a primal part of you surges forward, desperate to defend your honor, to provide an exhaustive explanation, to correct the perceived injustice, to seek immediate validation, or to instantly restore your image. It craves justice right now. But the brutal reality is that reacting impulsively is rarely the effective pathway to achieving any of these desired outcomes. In fact, more often than not, reacting gives the other person precisely what they sought from the outset: direct, unmediated access to your emotional system. If you carefully observe the dynamics of true power, whether in historical leadership or modern strategic interactions, you will notice a consistent pattern. The genuinely strong rarely take the bait, not because they are fearful or lacking in conviction, but because they are profoundly strategic. They possess an innate understanding that an impulsive reaction is often the very outcome the other side desires. If an adversary can successfully drag you out of your composed character, they win. If they can skillfully manipulate you into an emotional state, they win. If they can provoke you into losing your composure, they win. And they achieve this victory without expending significant effort, merely by skillfully triggering your automatic responses. There is a poignant quote that perfectly encapsulates this wisdom. When you argue with fools, you become one. The very moment you bite the bait, you willingly enter a conversational arena where the absolute best possible outcome is negligible, and the worst outcome is invariably significant damage to your reputation, your relationships, or your inner peace. You gain precisely nothing by attempting to prove yourself to someone who has deliberately set a trap. If their true intention were genuine truth or mutual understanding, there would be no bait. If they genuinely cared about resolution, there would be no calculated provocation. Bait, by its very definition, is not about resolution. It is exclusively about eliciting an impulsive reaction. This is precisely why cultivated restraint is, in itself, a profound power move. When you steadfastly refuse to take the bait, something truly remarkable unfolds. The individual who sought to ensnare you is now left to contend with their own agitated energy. Their tension has nowhere to go. Their intended escalation meets no opposing force. Their attempt at manipulation falls flat, deflating like a punctured balloon. And more often than not, it becomes strikingly obvious to everyone observing the interaction, who, in fact, occupies the higher, more powerful position. Refusing the bait does not, under any circumstances, imply that you tolerate disrespect. What it fundamentally means is that you refuse to defend the fragile constructs of your ego at the immense cost of your inherent dignity. You do not react purely because someone has provoked your pride. You do not engage in a futile fight simply because someone is inviting you to one. Instead, you wait. You evaluate the situation with calm detachment. You deliberately decide whether active engagement will genuinely benefit you, or if it will simply deplete your resources for no valuable return. And with increasing wisdom, you will find that most of the time it will not. Consider the sheer volume of pain, unnecessary drama, and irretrievably wasted time that occurs in human lives because someone, somewhere, took the bait. Arguments that fester for days, feuds that endure for months, resentments that poison years, all stemming from a single fleeting moment of provocation. all because an individual could not walk away, all because someone erroneously equated an impulsive reaction with a display of strength. Strength, true strength, is not demonstrated in the immediate moment of provocation. It is unequivocally proven in the subsequent, deliberate act of restraint. Anyone, with minimal effort, can react. Anyone can hurl angry words, escalate a conflict, or aggressively defend their position. That is the path of least resistance. What demands profound difficulty and rigorous training is staying composed, centered, and strategic when every fiber of your being screams to fire back. What is truly challenging is asking, who genuinely benefits if I respond right now? And arriving at the uncomfortable, yet liberating, realization that the answer is almost certainly not you. Refusing the bait also serves as an indispensable shield, protecting your invaluable reputation. People meticulously form their opinions of others, not solely from what they articulate, but profoundly from how they choose to respond under stress, under provocation, under duress. If you are known to be easily triggered, you will be perceived as emotionally fragile and easily swayed. If you are habitually provoked, you will be seen as reactive and predictably volatile. But if you consistently demonstrate unwavering restraint, if you resolutely refuse to be pulled into unnecessary petty battles, if you respond only when it truly matters and with deliberate intention, you meticulously build a quiet, unassailable authority. And quiet authority, let me assure you, is one of the most potent and enduring forms of social influence. Eventually, the consistent practice of refusing the bait evolves into a sophisticated internal filter. It keeps you out of petty conflicts and trivial squabbles. It shields you from low-level, unproductive conversations. It protects you from situations that do not, in any meaningful way, serve your higher goals and aspirations. The world, by its very nature, is saturated with incessant noise and countless invitations to fritter away your finite energy. You do not possess an unlimited reservoir of energy to squander. The conscious, deliberate choice not to react is how you wisely conserve it for the things that genuinely matter, for the pursuits that truly advance your life. The old version of you might have instinctively taken every bait, defending, arguing, proving, correcting, reacting to every single spark of external stimulus. The new version of you, the unrecognizable, more powerful version, consciously chooses silence and when it is appropriate, deploys strategy when it is necessary, and engages only when it unequivocally serves your long-term direction. That, my friends, is how you cease being controlled by external triggers. That is how you reclaim absolute ownership of your reactions. That is how you commence your ascent from a state of emotional survival to one of profound emotional leadership. Chapter 5. Rewrite the story in your mind. Every single reaction you experience, every surge of emotion, every instinctive defense is born not solely from an external event, but primarily from an internal story. This is not the objective, factual narrative of what physically occurred, but rather the deeply personal, often unconscious story you tell yourself about what occurred. Consider this profound truth. Two individuals can experience the exact same external situation and yet react in entirely opposite ways. The event itself remains constant, but the meaning they assign to it, their internal interpretation, is radically different. Meaning, you see, drives emotion, and emotion, in turn, drives reaction. Therefore, if your deepest desire is to fundamentally alter the way you react, you must first learn to consciously change the internal story you attach to any given moment. Imagine a common scenario. Someone interrupts you while you are speaking. One person, deeply entrenched in their egoic narrative, might immediately think, "They do not respect me. They think what I have to say is unimportant." and a potent wave of anger or indignation floods their system. Another individual, with a more flexible and empathetic internal narrative, might interpret the same interruption with, perhaps they are genuinely excited to contribute and simply did not realize they were cutting me off, or maybe they have an urgent point they feel needs addressing. Consequently, they feel little to no negative emotion. Same external event, profoundly different internal story, radically different emotional reaction. When you consciously learn to rewrite this internal story, you gain an immense, almost magical leverage over your entire emotional system. You become significantly less sensitive to petty triggers, less controlled by the fragile dictates of ego, and far less dominated by automatic assumptions that so often generate unnecessary conflict and internal turmoil. The core challenge is that most of these internal stories are not consciously chosen. They are automatic, often deeply ingrained by past experiences, persistent insecurities, unresolved fears, inherent cognitive biases, and a lifetime of unaddressed emotional residue. If, for instance, you were raised in an environment where criticism was routinely perceived as a personal attack, you might unconsciously interpret even neutral, constructive feedback as outright hostility. If your upbringing instilled a deep-seated need for constant external validation, you might interpret a moment of silence from others as a profound rejection. If you grew up surrounded by perpetual conflict, you might automatically assume that any disagreement is a precursor to outright disrespect or confrontation. None of these interpretations are universal, objective truths. They are purely personal, subjective stories. And until you actively become aware of them and commit to updating them, they will continue to direct your reactions, tirelessly and without your conscious consent. To effectively rewrite the story, your first imperative is to become acutely aware of its existence. The next time something triggers an automatic emotional reaction within you, pause, take a deep breath, and then, with unwavering self-honesty, ask, what internal story am I currently telling myself about this situation? What meaning am I assigning to this event right now? This question itself is a powerful act of conscious intercession. It immediately creates a crucial psychological distance. It grants you enough space to observe your own mind, to witness its narrative spinning tendencies, rather than being uncritically dragged into its current interpretation. Sometimes, through this detached observation, you will notice that the story is wildly exaggerated, disported, or overtly dramatic. Other times, you will discern that the story is deeply rooted in an underlying fear or a pervasive insecurity rather than an objective assessment of reality. And on occasion, you will realize, with a sudden flash of clarity, that there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever to support the story you are weaving. It is merely a deeply ingrained habit of thought. Here is where your power truly begins to grow. Once you identify the automatic, often disempowering, story, you gain the capacity to replace it with a superior, more constructive one. Not a delusional, overly optimistic story that denies reality, and certainly not a weak or submissive one, but a better, more strategic, and more empowering narrative. Instead of the knee-jerk, they did that deliberately to disrespect me, you might consciously try. Perhaps they are having a difficult day, or they are under their own stress, and their actions are not personal. Instead of, they are ignoring me, which means I am unimportant. You might reframe it with, people are often preoccupied with their own lives. Not everything revolves around me. Instead of the self-defeating, I failed, and this proves I am not good enough, you might intentionally shift to, failure is merely feedback, a valuable lesson, and I will adjust my approach accordingly. None of these intentional replacements are passive or indicative of weakness. On the contrary, They are profoundly rational, firmly grounded in a more expansive reality, and strategically designed to grant you internal stability instead of perpetuating chaos. The greatest trap is the unconscious assumption that your personal story is the absolute truth. It is not. It is merely one possible interpretation among many. Until you cultivate the discipline to consciously question it, it remains a self-imposed prison, and that prison will relentlessly keep you reactive, perpetually defensive, and emotionally fragile. Individuals who lack the capacity to rewrite their internal stories become unwitting victims of their own limited perceptions. They blindly believe every thought that crosses their mind and obey every feeling that surges through their body. But your thoughts, let it be clear, are not always accurate reflections of reality, and your feelings, while valid as signals, are not always the wisest guides for action. To build genuine emotional maturity, you require both profound awareness and conscious control over your internal narrative. This skill of rewriting your story holds immense significance because your internal narrative does not merely influence how you react, it fundamentally influences who you become. If your dominant story dictates that the world is perpetually against you, you will, by necessity, evolve into a perpetually defensive individual. If your pervasive story whispers that people are constantly judging you, you will inevitably become insecure and guarded. If your ingrained story insists that everything is a personal attack, you will live a life on perpetual edge. However, if your chosen story asserts that obstacles exist to make you stronger, that criticism is a valuable catalyst for growth, and that external disrespect does not, in any way, define your intrinsic worth, then you will, without fail, evolve into a person of profound resilience and unwavering inner strength. Same external world, radically new, empowering identity, rewriting the internal story, also acts as a powerful safeguard for your most cherished relationships. Significant portion of the conflict and misunderstanding in life does not arise from what objectively happened, but from the subjective interpretation of what happened. A single misunderstanding, left unaddressed and amplified by a negative narrative, can escalate into a full-blown war. A single, unchallenged assumption can irrevocably end a deep friendship. One inaccurate, unexamined story can erode trust for years. People rarely engage in bitter fights over objective facts. They fight vehemently over the meanings, the interpretations they assign to those facts. And if you steadfastly refuse to examine and challenge the meanings you automatically assign, you will, regrettably, spend your life reacting to things that might not even possess objective reality. This skill is also undeniably essential for cultivating genuine confidence. True confidence is not the absence of all doubt or fear. It is, more accurately, the cultivated ability to reinterpret situations in a manner that consistently propels you forward. When confident individuals encounter failure, their internal story is, "This is valuable feedback. I will learn from this and adjust my strategy." When insecure individuals encounter the same failure, their internal story is, "This unequivocally proves I am not capable. This confirms my inherent inadequacy." That profound difference in internal storytelling creates monumental difference in subsequent behavior. And that difference in behavior ultimately creates dramatic difference in life-altering results. Eventually, through consistent, deliberate practice, rewriting the story in your mind becomes second nature. You cease making impulsive assumptions. You stop personalizing every single event. You cease reacting to mere shadows and projections of your own fears. You begin to interpret challenges as opportunities, possibilities as opposed to threats, and those around you will notice. They will observe your calm demeanor when others panic. They will witness you respond with intelligence and strategic foresight when others react with raw emotion. They will see that you no longer surrender your power to every fleeting situation or every provocative person. That, my friends, is the unequivocal beginning of becoming truly unrecognizable. Not because the external world suddenly became easier, but because your internal dialogue, your conscious narrative, became immeasurably stronger and more intentional. And that newfound clarity produces unwavering control, control of your thoughts, control of your emotions, and ultimately, absolute control of your reactions. That profound control will, without a doubt, fundamentally change how you move through the world, how you speak your truth, and eventually, how you consciously live your entire life. Chapter 6. Upgrade. How you present yourself to the world. The way you meticulously present yourself to the world acts as a powerful, often unspoken, invitation for how the world, in turn, will respond to you. This encompasses far more than mere aesthetics or superficial charm. It includes the cadence of your voice, the resolve in your posture, the consistency of your decisions, the measured quality of your reactions, and even the subtle energetic signature you carry into any room. People are ceaselessly, and often unconsciously, reading these signals. They discern strength, they perceive insecurity, they recognize confidence, they register hesitation, they sense threat, they note composure, and they gauge capability long before they ever process the literal words you utter. And whether you are consciously aware of it or not, these myriad signals are instrumental in determining the opportunities that present themselves, the quality of treatment you receive, and the level of respect you effortlessly command. You have undoubtedly experienced this phenomenon yourself. Some individuals enter a room and, without uttering a single word, immediately establish a particular tone, a palpable presence. Others enter quietly and, just as instantly, seem to shrink into the background, becoming almost invisible. What is the subtle, yet profound difference? It is their presentation. Not in the shallow sense of fashion or overt charisma, but in the far deeper, more foundational sense of their self-identity, their internal posture, and the unwavering self-respect they embody. When you actively control the manner in which you present yourself, you powerfully influence how others will choose to interact with you. Conversely, when you relinquish control of that crucial presentation, you leave your identity to external interpretation, and people, it must be said, rarely interpret in your favor. One of the most rapid and effective pathways to upgrading your presentation is through the deliberate control of your reactions. Emotional volatility sends a clear signal of unpredictability. Unpredictability, in turn, signals instability, and instability, in the eyes of others, breeds caution and hesitation. When you are easily triggered, easily flustered, or prone to impulsive outbursts, the world subtly, yet precisely, learns how to manipulate you. The more predictable and reactive your emotional patterns are, the easier you become to control. But when you consistently evolve into the kind of person who responds with unwavering composure, even amidst the most acute stress, your entire presence undergoes a profound transformation. Your periods of silence become strategic and potent. Your restraint becomes impressive, a quiet display of power. Your steadiness, your unshakable calm, becomes a powerful form of influence. There is a vital distinction to be made here. Presenting authentic strength does not in any way equate to acting tough or adopting an aggressive facade. It means acting with unwavering alignment with your values, your intentions, and your long-term goals. Toughness, is often noisy, performative, and reactive. True strength is quiet, deliberate, and powerfully selective. Toughness often seeks to impress. Authentic strength feels no need to. The individual who constantly strives to appear powerful is often, paradoxically, deeply insecure. The individual who is genuinely powerful feels no need to announce it. Power is not declared, it is felt. It is experienced through unwavering self-control. And the most compelling, undeniable display of that control is manifested in how you handle your reactions when circumstances do not unfold precisely as you desired. Another indispensable aspect of your presentation emanates from the way you speak. This extends beyond merely the words you meticulously choose. It encompasses the timing of your delivery, the nuanced tone of your voice, the crystalline clarity of your message, and the precise intention behind every utterance. Words spoken in a fit for frustration are rarely persuasive or impactful. Words spoken solely to impress are rarely, if ever, genuinely respected. Words spoken without a deliberate pause, a moment of reflection, are rarely deeply listened to. But words articulated with composure, with precision, and with a clear, calm intention resonate with profound impact. The listener senses that you mean what you say. They perceive that you are not begging for their agreement. They feel that you possess an unshakable inner center, a solid core of self-possession. Your body language also plays an undeniably critical role. Not in the gimmicky sense of adopting superficial power poses, but in the foundational, embodied sense of how you authentically carry yourself. Do you habitually slouch, projecting a lack of self-importance, or do you stand with a commanding presence, occupying your space with natural authority? Do you rush through your movements, broadcasting urgency and anxiety, or do you move with deliberate intention, conveying calm and purpose? Do you physically occupy the space around you, or do you instinctively try to disappear into the background? These are not insignificant details. They are potent, non-verbal cues that meticulously shape external perception. People, quite simply, treat you in accordance with how you consistently treat yourself. If you present yourself as someone who perpetually requires permission or validation, the world will, without hesitation, demand that you constantly prove yourself. If you present yourself as someone who possesses an innate understanding of their own profound value, the world will subtly, yet surely, adjust to accommodate that self-worth. Your identity, that complex tapestry of who you are, is also profoundly developed and reinforced through unwavering consistency. When your behavior, your words, and your reactions are consistent, people learn to trust you. When your patterns are erratic, unpredictable, or volatile, people instinctively watch you with a cautious, wary eye. Trust, you see, creates an open pathway for opportunity. Being constantly watched, on the other hand, breeds hesitation and limits access. Upgrading your presentation, therefore, means consciously becoming an individual others know how to reliably engage with, someone whose emotional reactions are stable and predictable, someone whose word is reliably congruent with their actions, someone whose decisions are not impulsively dictated by fleeting emotions. In the long run, this meticulously cultivated reputation becomes an undeniable strategic advantage. People consistently prefer to partner with, to promote, to invest in, and to place their bets on individuals who demonstrate the rare ability to maintain unwavering composure under pressure. An often overlooked, yet immensely powerful, aspect of your presentation is the energetic signature you transmit into any given situation. Some individuals, unconsciously, carry an aura of urgency, pervasive anxiety, or deep-seated insecurity wherever they go, radiating these emotions to everyone in their vicinity. Others, however, consciously or unconsciously, bring with them a palpable sense of confidence, steady patience, and crystalline clarity. Energy is communication without words. It is a powerful, subliminal broadcast. Energy creates atmosphere, and that atmosphere profoundly influences decision-making, cooperation, and overall outcomes. If your presence consistently puts others at ease, they become far more receptive and willing to listen to you. If your presence conversely injects tension or discomfort, they instinctively prepare to defend or resist. Your reactions, let us be clear, are one of the strongest, most direct contributors to the energy you consistently project. The more profound internal control you possess, the more unshakable stability you radiate externally. Upgrading how you present yourself is not about constructing an artificial facade or pretending to be someone you are not. It is rather a profound process of revealing a more disciplined, more refined, and more authentic version of who you already are at your core. It is the conscious removal of unnecessary, self-sabotaging behaviors that subtly weaken your influence, and their replacement with deliberate behaviors that unequivocally strengthen it. The individuals you admire for their commanding presence, their gravitas, were not simply born with it, they meticulously built it. They built it by learning to master their reactions, by diligently regulating their emotions, and by consistently carrying themselves with profound purpose and unwavering self-respect. Eventually, as your presentation undergoes this conscious evolution, the world, in turn, begins to treat you differently. People interrupt you less frequently. They challenge you less reflexively. They provoke you less often. They demonstrate greater respect for your time. They weigh your words more carefully. And they approach you with a palpably different tone, a newfound deference. Not because you have explicitly demanded respect, but because you have, through your consistent, composed behavior, projected the unassailable image of someone who simply does not respond to disrespect impulsively. The old version of you reacted to everything. The upgraded, unrecognizable version for you reacts only to what truly matters, and that profound shift alone changes everything about how you move through the world, and how the world, in turn, moves around you. Chapter 7. Choose logic when impulse shows up. When an unexpected event catches you off guard, when something triggers a sudden internal surge, your very first reaction is, almost without exception, rarely the wisest one. That initial response is predominantly emotional. It is fast, intensely charged, and frequently based on incomplete information, distorted perceptions, or deeply ingrained, often unhelpful, assumptions. Impulse, by its very evolutionary design, is geared for immediate survival, not for nuanced, long-term strategy. It craves instant resolution, immediate clarity, a quick victory, or an unthinking escape, but the complex tapestry of life that does not, as a rule, reward immediacy. Life, instead, rewards profound alignment. And thus invaluable alignment emerges from the conscious, deliberate choice to prioritize logic over raw impulse, especially in those critical moments when your emotions aggressively demand to seize the steering wheel. Impulse, with its urgent, clamoring voice, screams, react now, defend, attack, run. Logic, with its quiet, steady presence, whispers, pause, think first, consider the long game. Impulse commands, protect your fragile pride at all costs. Logic counters, protect your valuable future, your reputation, your peace of mind. Impulse urges, make them feel the same discomfort, the same anger, the same pain that you are experiencing. Logic wisely advises, do what genuinely benefits you in the long term, regardless of their emotional state. Notice a stark contrast. One is loud, boisterous, and demanding. The other is quiet, observant, and measured. One is impatiently desperate for immediate gratification. The other is steadily focused on enduring results. One seeks instantaneous relief from discomfort. The other seeks profound, sustainable outcomes. And the version of yourself that ultimately becomes unrecognizable, the truly transformed version, is the one who consistently chooses enduring results over fleeting relief. Most people, in their everyday lives, operate under the comfortable delusion that they are inherently logical. They think, I know what is going on, I understand the situation. But mere intellectual knowledge is not synonymous with conscious choice. You can possess a profound intellectual understanding of what is wise, what is strategic, what is ultimately beneficial, and yet still react impulsively, driven by the seductive pull of immediate emotional satisfaction. You can grasp what is objectively right, and yet still succumb to doing what simply feels good in the moment. Logic does not simply exist passively within your mind. It must actively win the battle against your surging emotions when the moment of truth arrives and your resolve is tested. That internal battle, my friends, is where authentic maturity is meticulously built. That is where genuine strength is unequivocally proven. Impulse, in its various manifestations, is primarily fueled by three powerful, often interconnected, motivations: ego, fear, and insecurity. Ego reacts with a primal urge to protect perceived status, image, or self-importance. Fear reacts to safeguard perceived safety, to avoid potential loss or pain. Insecurity reacts to defend a fragile self-image, to prevent judgment or disapproval. None of these motivations are inherently wrong in a purely biological sense. They are evolutionary remnants. However, they're almost always incomplete. They lack the capacity to see far ahead, to anticipate future consequences, to calculate the broader impact of a rash action. Logic, on the other hand, possesses the invaluable ability to see the entire chessboard. It asks probing, consequential questions. If I choose to react in this specific way, what will realistically happen next? What is the true cost of this particular action? Not just emotionally, but strategically. Is this a genuinely beneficial trade-off? The individual who painstakingly learns to think in terms of shades, to meticulously evaluate every potential reaction, has an investment with foreseeable returns, becomes an immensely powerful force. Reactive individuals consistently lose in the long run because they impulsively trade away long-term respect for the fleeting comfort of immediate emotional release. They trade a carefully cultivated reputation for a momentary outburst. They trade their hard-won self-control for the temporary satisfaction of unfiltered expression. But resilient, strategic individuals, the architects of their own destinies, do the exact opposite. They are willing to endure short-term emotional discomfort in exchange for long-term respect. They trade impulsive expression for enduring influence. They trade unthinking reaction for profound, sustainable leverage. That is what choosing logic looks like in diligent practice. To consciously choose logic, your first imperative is to recognize, with acute awareness, when impulse is decisively entering the room of your consciousness. You will almost invariably notice its arrival in your body before you fully grasp it in your mind. Your chest might tighten, your breathing pattern may become shallow and rapid, your vocal tone might sharpen, your thoughts will accelerate, your patience will precipitously shorten, and an undeniable urge to respond to act will rise within you. These are not infallible signs that you must react. They are, crucially, infallible signs that you must pause. The very moment you detect that internal shift, that subtle reorientation, logic becomes immediately available to you. You simply have to consciously reach for it, to activate it, before impulse, that unthinking autopilot, takes action on your behalf. This is precisely why training your awareness is so utterly essential. You cannot consciously choose logic if you remain oblivious to the moments when you are being emotionally hijacked. You must meticulously learn to catch yourself mid-trigger, not an hour later when regret sets in, not after the argument has spiraled out of control, but in the precise moment of activation. That is the skill. That is the rigorous training. That is the invaluable work. And the more consistently you practice this, the faster and more adept you become at noticing the emotional surge and deliberately halting it before it transmutes into an regrettable behavior. Once you have noticed the surge of impulse, the next critical step is objective evaluation. Ask yourself, with crystal clarity, what is the specific desired outcome I genuinely want to create here? This is a profoundly powerful question, because it compels your mind to shift its focus from a purely emotional defense to a strategic, outcome-oriented mode of thinking. The very moment you begin to think in terms of desired outcomes, you cease reacting blindly to the immediate moment and begin, instead, to respond deliberately to your overarching mission. And missions, let me assure you, always, unfailingly, outperform fleeting moments. An individual who lives solely for the satisfaction of the moment often burns bridges, creates chaos, and leaves a trail of regret. An individual who lives strategically for their mission meticulously builds pathways, fosters cooperation, and creates sustainable progress. Choosing logic does not, by any means, imply becoming cold, unfeeling, or robotic. Emotion can, and should, still have a seat at the table of your internal council. It simply cannot be allowed to run the entire meeting. Emotion brings vital passion, facilitates deep connection, imbues experiences with meaning, and fuels inherent drive. Logic, on the other hand, provides indispensable direction, clear structure, analytical clarity, and precise timing. When both emotion and logic work in harmonious concert, you become an individual of surgical sharpness, profound deliberation, and significantly harder to manipulate or sway. When raw emotion runs unchecked, without the guiding hand of logic, you become predictably volatile and remarkably easy for external forces to control. One of the most effective ways to strengthen your capacity for logic is through the diligent study of consequences. Take a reflective glance back at your past reactions. Honestly ask yourself, did reacting quickly in that situation truly serve me, or did it ultimately sabotage my best interests? You will almost certainly discover that a significant number of your deepest regrets could have been entirely averted with just a little more space, a little more deliberate thought, or a little more cultivated patience. Your past, you see, is not merely a collection of events. It is a profound teacher, and it teaches you, not through arbitrary punishment, but through discernible, repeating patterns. When you learn to observe these patterns with crystal clarity, you gain the power to consciously stop repeating them. Eventually, something truly interesting begins to occur. More consistently you choose logic, the less chaotic and unpredictable your life becomes. People cease attempting to bait you because they instinctively realize their tactics no longer work. Potential conflicts de-escalate and dissipate before they even fully ignite. Opportunities, recognizing your stability and dependability, begin to gravitate towards you. And perhaps most importantly, You develop an unshakable trust in yourself, not merely an emotional trust, but a profound strategic trust. That deep-seated internal trust becomes the bedrock, the indispensable foundation of the unrecognizable version of you. The old version of you impulsively reacted to protect its fragile pride. The new version of you thoughtfully responds to protect its enduring purpose. And that fundamental difference, my friends, will meticulously reshape every aspect of your existence: how you think, how you interact, and how you consciously build your life from this moment forward. Chapter 8. Stay calm when conflict invites chaos. Conflict, in its rawest and most intense form, serves as the ultimate crucible where emotional discipline is tested with unrelenting rigor. Anyone, regardless of their intrinsic character, can effortlessly maintain composure when life unfolds smoothly, when plans proceed without a hitch, when the people around them are agreeable and cooperative, and when outcomes perfectly align with efforts. But true composure, authentic self-mastery, reveals itself most profoundly when things unexpectedly break, when harsh disappointments abruptly arrive, when the unsettling specter of uncertainty appears, and when life hurls challenges at you that you unequivocally did not choose. Hard times are not merely a test of your raw endurance. They are, in a more profound sense, an existential exam on the depth of your ability to control your reactions when external pressure is not optional, when it is intense and unavoidable. And the fundamental distinction between those who emotionally crumble under this pressure and those who resiliently grow from it is not attributable to luck or privilege, but to a cultivated, strategic approach. These individuals possess the rare skill to transmute hard times into a profound advantage rather than succumbing to them as an insurmountable crisis. The vast majority of people, when confronted with hard times, react with a predictable cascade of emotions. They complain bitterly. They panic uncontrollably. They reflexively assign blame to external circumstances or other individuals. They freeze, becoming paralyzed by fear. They offer endless explanations and justifications, subtly deflecting responsibility. They seek immediate distractions, desperately trying to avoid confronting the harsh realities before them. But emotional reactions to adversity, almost without exception, rarely produce genuinely useful or constructive outcomes. While they may offer a fleeting, temporary soothing to the bruised ego, they do not, in any meaningful way, change the situation. They do not strengthen your resolve. They do not propel anything forward. Hard times are not resolved by mere emotional expression. They are, instead, resolved by profound emotional leadership. Turning adversity into a strategic advantage begins with one pivotal mindset shift. Obstacles are not interruptions to your intended path. They are, in fact, invaluable information. They serve as diagnostic tools, revealing precisely where your systems are weak, where your skills are incomplete, where your underlying assumptions were unrealistic, and what fundamental changes are now required. Without the abrasive friction of adversity, you would rarely, if ever, be compelled to examine these critical aspects of your life. Comfort, you see, deftly hides weaknesses. Problems, however, brutally expose them, and once something is unequivocally exposed, it can, finally, be meticulously improved. Reflect upon any story of profound transformation that you deeply admire. That transformation did not manifest during a leisurely vacation. It did not unfold. Every aspect of life was perfectly aligned and going right. It certainly did not occur when the path ahead was perfectly paved and effortlessly smooth. Instead, it emerged precisely when something broke, when a meticulously crafted plan failed, when an unexpected setback appeared, when an external force exerted immense pressure. Hard times, you see, compel profound reflection. Reflection, diligently pursued, generates crystalline clarity. Clarity, once attained, fuels decisive action. And decisive action, consistently applied, produces undeniable growth. There is, fundamentally, no growth without friction. Friction, in this context, is simply the unavoidable tax of genuine progress. To effectively leverage adversity to your advantage, you must, with unwavering discipline, resist the pervasive urge to personalize it. Hard times are not irrefutable evidence that the universe is conspiring against you, that you are inherently not good enough, or that the world is fundamentally unfair. Hard times are, in fact, a universal human experience. The only true differentiating factor is how individuals choose to interpret them. One person perceives adversity as a direct, malevolent attack, an unfair punishment. Another person, with a more evolved perspective, perceives adversity as rigorous training, an opportunity to hone their skills and strengthen their character. And the individual who consistently views it as training will, inevitably, outgrow and outperform the individual who consistently views it as an attack. Another crucial component of utilizing adversity to your advantage is learning to deliberately slow down your initial reaction. When a genuinely bad event occurs, your nervous system, wired for primitive survival, instinctively craves speed. It demands a fast explanation, immediate comfort, a quick escape. But the very first explanation you instinctively offer yourself is frequently inaccurate, based on fear rather than fact. And the initial solution you impulsively attempt is often emotionally driven rather than strategically sound. When you consciously pause, you create invaluable space for superior, more rational thinking to emerge. When you create that space, you cease reacting solely to the immediate pain and begin instead to respond strategically to the underlying problem. Adversity also serves as a potent revealer of character, not primarily to the external world, but more importantly, to yourself. In moments of challenge, you discover whether you possess a tendency to quit easily or persevere. You learn whether you panic indiscriminately under pressure or maintain a steady hand. You uncover whether you habitually search for convenient excuses or diligently seek robust solutions. You discern whether your actions are primarily driven by the pursuit of comfort or by a deeper sense of unwavering purpose. Most people, as be said, do not truly know the depths of their own character until adversity unequivocally shows up, because character is not meticulously built in the serene realm of theory. It is forged and proven in the intense fires of conflict and challenge. Hard times also demand a profound sense of responsibility. Responsibility, in this context, does not equate to blame or safe flagellation. Responsibility means absolute ownership of your next move. You are not, let us be clear, necessarily responsible for every single event that happens to you, but you are, unequivocally, 100% responsible for how you choose to respond to it. And the very moment you fully embrace responsibility for your response, you cease passively waiting for life to magically fix itself. You transform into the proactive agent who adjusts, who adapts, who learns, who recalibrates, who, with unwavering resolve, gets up again. That is authentic power. Turning adversity into a strategic advantage also necessitates the deliberate extraction of profound value from pain. Pain, in its various forms, is not merely a negative sensation. Pain is invaluable information. Pain is crucial feedback. Pain is a vital message, signaling precisely where your evolution is now required. The majority of people instinctively try to numb pain, will avoid it, to suppress it. But pain avoided, let it be understood, is merely pain delayed, often accumulating into deeper, more intractable issues. When you consciously choose to learn from your pain, it transmutes into powerful fuel, propelling your growth. When you choose to ignore it, pain, instead, becomes residual trauma. Residue makes you heavy, bitter, and perpetually reactive. Fuel, however, makes you stronger, wiser, and profoundly more intentional. Another powerful way to leverage adversity is through the relentless pursuit of direction. Hard times, by their very nature, force decisive decisions. They compel you to unequivocally choose what truly matters and what in the grand scheme of things does not. They act as a ruthless filter, eliminating superficial distractions. They expose and remove unnecessary people from your inner circle. They shatter comfortable illusions. Clarity, let it be known, is an expensive commodity. You rarely acquire it for free. Adversity, in its demanding wisdom, is often one of the prices you pay for the priceless gift of clarity. Once you possess that clarity, your reactions become surgically sharper, your priorities become impeccably cleaner, and your life, in its entirety, becomes more profoundly aligned. The undeniable truth is this: hard times will, inevitably, visit everyone, eventually. You do not get to avoid them, but you absolutely get to choose what they ultimately produce within you. You can allow adversity to shrink you into a smaller, more fearful version of yourself, or to powerfully strengthen you. You can let it render you bitter and resentful, or transform you into a wiser, more compassionate being. You can allow it to break you into irreparable pieces, or to meticulously rebuild you into a more resilient structure. Many of the strongest, most composed, and least reactive individuals you'll ever have the privilege to meet did not become that way because life was gentle and accommodating. They became that way precisely because life was brutally, unyieldingly not. The old version of you undoubtedly took adversity personally, reacting to it with a predictable cascade of emotions. The new version of you, the unrecognizable version, perceives adversity as invaluable material for profound growth, for essential learning, for strategic recalibration, and for unshakable resilience. And that profound shift in perspective, that internal alchemy, is one of the clearest, most undeniable signs that you are meticulously becoming unrecognizable, the person you used to be. Chapter 9. Do not waste your energy on every noise. One of the most insidious and utterly exhausting ways to navigate life is to instinctively feel compelled to respond to everything. Every casual comment, every unsolicited opinion, every piece of idle gossip, every subtle provocation, every fleeting news headline, every minor inconvenience, all of it possesses the potential to utterly consume you, to drain your vital reserves, if you fail to cultivate the discerning discipline to filter out the noise. Life, in its modern manifestation, is inherently loud. People, by their very nature, can be equally loud and demanding. The world is saturated with incessant noise, much of it cleverly disguised as profound importance. And if you neglect to develop the crucial discipline to disregard this cacophony, you will inevitably squander your most precious energy on things that ultimately yield precisely nothing in return. Os, in this context, is anything that aggressively demands a reaction from you, yet offers no tangible, valuable result in return. Pause for a moment and consider how often people unwittingly fall into this draining trap. They react to the anonymous opinions of strangers on online forums. They react emotionally to the capricious moods of their co-workers. They react with a surge of indignation to the erratic behavior of drivers on the road. They react to the manipulative tactics of relatives who thrive on drama. They react to friends who, consciously or unconsciously, perpetuate chaos. They react to individuals who crave attention more than they value genuine truth. And every single one of those automatic, unthinking reactions exacts a significant cost in terms of your vital energy. Energy that could have been far more productively invested in meticulously building a better life, in diligently improving valuable skills, in strengthening cherished relationships, or in simply savoring moments of profound peace. You must internalize a fundamental truth. Energy is your most precious currency. Where you consciously choose to spend it directly determines the returns you will accrue. If you squander it on noise, your return will be precisely zero. If you strategically invest it in personal growth, you gain immense leverage. If you fritter it away on drama, your only harvest would be debilitating fatigue. If you commit it to disciplined action, you will invariably reap substantial results. Truly strong individuals are not strong because they indiscriminately fight more battles. They are strong unequivocally because they choose to fight fewer battles, and critically, they choose the right ones. Filtering noise begins with the profound recognition that not everything, by any stretch of the imagination, deserves your precious attention. Attention, let us be clear, is one of the most valuable forms of power you possess. Whatever you consciously choose to direct your attention towards will, without fail, expand and grow in your life. If you fixate your attention on problems, problems will proliferate and loom larger. If you diligently focus your attention on your goals will expand and move closer to fruition. Noise actively seeks your attention, and the very moment you surrender that attention, noise transmutes into a potent form of influence. But influence devoid of conscious intention, influence driven by external forces, is inherently dangerous. It renders you perpetually reactive rather than powerfully strategic. Social environments, particularly those dominated by the superficiality of digital platforms, thrive on noise. Muck and force communicate not with the genuine intention to connect, but with the subtle, manipulative aim to provoke. Some criticize, not to genuinely help or offer constructive feedback, but to elevate their own fragile sense of superiority. Some engage in gossip, not to inform or share valuable insights, but to distract, to entertain, and to sow seeds of discord. And if you fail to acutely notice and understand these insidious patterns, you will, without fail, find yourself perpetually dragged into battles that fundamentally do not belong to you. Someone else's unchecked negativity transmutes into your internal stress. Someone else's pervasive insecurity becomes the fuel for your arguments. Someone else's insatiable craving for drama becomes the chaotic soundtrack of your weekend. Meanwhile, your own cherished goals remain untouched, your vital energy drains away, and your mind becomes hopelessly cluttered with a myriad of problems that were never, in the first place, yours to solve. There is a powerful mental shift, a paradigm change, that alters everything. Not every challenging situation is yours to fix. Not every provocative statement is yours to answer. Not every impulsive provocation is yours to address. And crucially, not every emotion expressed around you is yours to match. When you diligently learn to allow things to pass through the landscape of your mind, without hooking into them, without emotionally attaching to them, you become an individual who is exceedingly difficult to disturb, to destabilize, to manipulate. This is not detachment in the cold, unfeeling sense. It is detachment in the profoundly mature sense. Detachment as a deliberate strategy. Detachment as an intelligent filter. Detachment as an act of powerful self-protection. To effectively avoid squandering your finite energy on noise, you must meticulously develop clear, non-negotiable criteria for engagement. Ask yourself a series of simple, yet profoundly powerful questions. Does this truly matter in the grand scheme of my life? Does engaging with this genuinely serve my highest interests and goals? Will this particular issue matter a month from now or a year from now? Will responding to this genuinely benefit me, or will it merely soothe a bruised ego? Most often, you will find that your ego craves the immediate satisfaction of reacting, of being right, of defending its pride. But your higher, more evolved self, your capacity for growth, yearns for the quiet strength of ignoring the irrelevant. The ego demands to be right. Growth prioritizes being effective. The ego desperately seeks attention. Growth diligently pursues clear direction and meaningful results. A powerful example of this cultivated wisdom is the strategic deployment silence. Silence, let it be clear, is not a manifestation of weakness. Silence can be an impenetrable shield, a sophisticated strategy, and a rigorous test. Strategic silence compels others to reveal the true depth or regrettable shallowness of their intentions. If noise is superficial and lacking substance, it will invariably die a quiet death without your active participation. If the noise possesses genuine substance, it will persist, but often with greater clarity and a more focused signal. Silence, in its profound wisdom, teaches you precisely who deserves your invaluable energy. Individuals who genuinely seek understanding will patiently ask for clarification. Individuals who thrive on drama will, predictably, escalate their tactics to capture your attention. Silence, in its quiet power, effectively exposes underlying motivations. Another key component in this mastery is emotional conservation. Your emotional capacity, like any other vital resource, is finite and possesses inherent limits. You simply cannot afford to invest it indiscriminately in everything that demands your attention. If you habitually squander your emotional resources on noise, you inevitably forfeit the capacity to invest in the things that genuinely matter: your cherished relationships, your ambitious goals, the development of your valuable skills, your overarching purpose, and your fundamental health and well-being. Many individuals do not suffer from a fundamental lack of motivation. Their struggle stems from a severe deficit of available emotional bandwidth, precisely because they have thoughtlessly spent it all on things that produced absolutely nothing of value. They were perpetually busy, but never truly productive. They felt utterly exhausted, but never genuinely fulfilled. The world, in its often unseen mechanisms, ultimately rewards those who possess the profound wisdom to allocate their energy with surgical precision. High performers, genuinely respected leaders, and individuals who exhibit unwavering mental stability all share this crucial trait. They do not react to everything. They meticulously protect their attention. They rigorously safeguard their precious time. They fiercely defend their emotional state, not out of selfishness, but out of a deep-seated understanding that their internal resources are both limited and immensely valuable. Eventually, when you consistently stop responding to every fleeting noise, something truly profound begins to occur. Your internal world becomes remarkably quieter. Not because the external world has magically transformed, but because you have. You cease to hear the incessant invitations to chaos. You stop noticing the petty insults that once deeply offended you. You relinquish the power of external opinions that once rigidly controlled your every move. You stop getting senselessly dragged into pointless, energy-draining debates. The noise was always there, a constant hum, you have simply and powerfully stopped tuning into it. The old version of you automatically reacted to every noise. The new, unrecognizable version of you listens only for the signal. Signal, let it be defined, is information that actively helps you grow, helps you build, helps you learn, or helps you move forward with purpose. Noise is everything else. The very moment you consistently make that profound distinction, you cease squandering your invaluable power and begin, with unwavering intention, to reclaim your life. Chapter 10. Trade short-term comfort for long-term power. One of the most fundamental and pervasive reasons why individuals react impulsively, why they succumb to the immediate gratification of emotional outbursts, is because impulse itself promises an immediate, alluring form of relief. Relief from the gnawing discomfort of uncertainty, the sting of embarrassment, the relentless pressure of a situation, or the unsettling poke at deep-seated insecurities. And in the fleeting moment, this relief feels undeniably good. It soothes the raw edges of the ego. It offers a temporary balm to a threatened image. It provides something, anything, right now. But here, precisely, lies the profound and often devastating problem. The very things that feel undeniably good in the immediate present often exact a steep, unforeseen cost in the future. Conversely, the things that demand considerable cost and discomfort right now often yield exponential, invaluable rewards later. This, my friends, is the fundamental trade-off, the litmus test that distinguishes the easily triggered from the deeply, strategically disciplined. Delayed gratification is not merely a financial concept, applicable only to saving money or making wise investments. It is, in its purest form, a profound principle of emotional behavior. It is about identity. It is about the cultivated internal fortitude with which you navigate stress, resist temptation, withstand provocation, and channel desire. When you choose to react quickly, impulsively, you are by definition choosing short-term comfort, a fleeting respite. When you consciously choose to pause, to think, and to respond with deliberate intention, you are, without fail, choosing long-term power, an enduring, compounding advantage. And long-term power, let me assure you, always, unequivocally, wins. Consider for a moment how frequently people inflict lasting damage upon their own futures for the sake of a momentary comfort. They lash out in a fit of unbridled anger, irrevocably damaging precious relationships. They aggressively defend a fragile ego, irreparably damaging their credibility and reputation. They frantically pursue instant validation, subtly eroding their inherent dignity and self-respect. They argue vehemently to win a trivial point today, only to forfeit invaluable influence tomorrow. This pattern is ubiquitous, appearing in countless variations. Comfort now, severe consequences later. The path of true maturity, however, consciously and deliberately flips this equation. It embraces discomfort now, profound strength later. Emotional maturity is meticulously constructed on this very principle. Truly strong individuals possess the profound capacity to tolerate emotional discomfort. They can patiently endure awkward silences. They can withstand the unsettling delay of external validation. They can navigate the inherent discomfort of uncertainty. They can tolerate being temporarily misunderstood, precisely because they possess a deep-seated understanding that short-term emotional discomfort is the currency which they purchase long-term respect and enduring influence. Weak individuals, conversely, demand immediate comfort. They demand instant explanations. They demand validation, now. And in that very demand, they forfeit all leverage, all strategic advantage. A powerful and common example of this dynamic is the overwhelming urge to react defensively. When someone offers criticism, the instinctual, ego-driven urge is to immediately explain yourself, to vigorously defend your position, to correct perceived inaccuracies, to justify your actions. Why? Because being misunderstood, being judged, or facing critique feels intensely uncomfortable. But emotionally mature individuals possess the rare capacity to patiently sit within that discomfort. They understand, with profound clarity, that not every critic genuinely deserves an immediate clarification, and not every challenging situation benefits from an instant defense. Sometimes, the most strategic, most powerful move is to allow misunderstandings to resolve themselves organically over time. Sometimes, the most eloquent and effective response is not an explanation, but demonstrable improvement. Sometimes the undeniable results you meticulously produce later will far more powerfully and convincingly erase the doubts people harbor today than any elaborate immediate speech ever could. Another insidious form of short-term comfort is the avoidance of decisive action. People procrastinate, not primarily because they are inherently lazy, but because the act of making a decision itself creates discomfort. Deciding means committing. Committing means risking potential failure. Avoiding decisions, therefore, feels temporarily good. No immediate judgment, no potential failure, no immediate responsibility. But in the long term, pervasive indecision is one of the fastest and most debilitating ways to forfeit personal power. Truly powerful individuals make decisive choices. They willingly accept the discomfort of uncertainty now in order to gain clear direction and tangible progress later. Delayed gratification also directly applies to the intricate art of communication. When conflict inevitably arises, people often rush to resolve things immediately, precisely because the inherent tension feels acutely uncomfortable. But not every conflict should, or even can, be resolved in the exact moment you perceive it. Sometimes individuals involved need a crucial period to cool down, to allow their emotions to settle. Sometimes new information needs time to emerge and be processed. Sometimes genuine clarity only arrives after a period of reflective silence. When you impulsively force a resolution simply because you cannot tolerate emotional tension, you often solve nothing of substance. You merely soothe your own immediate feelings, leaving the core issue unaddressed. Then there is the ever-present trap of instant pleasure, the relentless pursuit of food cravings, impulsive purchases, mind-numbing distractions, the endless scroll of social media, the insatiable seeking of external validation. All of these offer a fleeting, immediate comfort, but often with absolutely no long-term benefit. They are effortlessly easy to indulge in because their rewards are immediate, potent, and seductive. But the more habitually you indulge in immediate pleasure, the less you systematically build your capacity for long-term power, for sustained progress, for deep fulfillment. Pleasure, in its essence, chases fleeting feelings. Power, in its essence, relentlessly chases strategic direction. You become a truly formidable and unstoppable force when you cultivate the rare ability to delay gratification, when you can consciously and confidently declare, "I do not need to feel good right now," and meticulously building something far, far bigger and more enduring. That profound mindset is exceptionally rare in our instant gratification culture. That mindset is precisely why the world, despite its initial mockery, eventually looks up to disciplined individuals. Discipline, you see, is universally respected. Instant gratification is utterly common, and what is common rarely commands genuine admiration. To truly master the principles of this chapter, you need to begin asking yourself anew, more profound question. When impulse, with its seductive promises of immediate relief, makes its insistent appearance, ask, what will this impulsive action truly cost me in the long term? Not just emotionally, but in terms of your evolving identity, your reputation, your relationships, your progress. Every single reaction you consciously choose is, in essence, a vote for the person you are meticulously becoming. React in unthinking anger, and you cast a powerful vote for a future identity, steeped in anger. React from a place of deep-seated insecurity, and you vote for an identity defined by insecurity. Respond with profound wisdom and strategic foresight, and you cast a powerful, transformative vote for an identity of wisdom and mastery. A compounding effect of those daily, seemingly small votes is what ultimately shapes the very architecture of your character. You also need to unequivocally recognize that delayed gratification is not a form of deprivation. On the contrary, it is a profound act of strategic investment. When you consciously delay the impulsive reaction, you are, in essence, investing in the cultivation of a superior, more measured response. When you delay the insatiable craving for external validation, you are making a powerful investment in your inherent self-respect and inner worth. When you delay fleeting pleasure, you are making a deliberate investment in long-term fulfillment and enduring satisfaction. When you delay an unnecessary argument, you are making a profound investment in your precious peace of mind. Investment, you see, is often uncomfortable, even painful, at its inception, but invariably rewarding at its culmination. Pleasure, conversely, is typically rewarding at its beginning, but often exacts a heavy cost at its end. Eventually, as you consistently and deliberately trade short-term emotional comfort for the profound advantages of long-term power, you will notice something truly profound unfolding in your life. Your entire world begins to meticulously organize itself around your unwavering discipline. Opportunities that were previously inaccessible now miraculously open themselves to you. People begin to treat you with a newfound deference and respect, precisely because you have learned to treat yourself differently, with a higher regard. Chaos, that perennial adversary, loses its relentless grip on you because it can no longer skillfully bait you into its destructive dance. The version of you that once desperately chased immediate relief now, with quiet confidence, chases profound mastery. And that version, my friends, is precisely the one that eventually becomes truly unrecognizable. Not because the external tapestry of life magically became easier, but because you, with profound intentionality, stopped choosing fleeting comfort over enduring growth. Chapter 11. Starve the drama that drains your focus. Drama, in its myriad forms, is one of the most significant and insidious thieves of human potential. It relentlessly steals your precious time, hijacks your invaluable attention, drains your finite emotional bandwidth, and perhaps most detrimentally, utterly siphons away your crucial focus. People often profoundly underestimate the true cumulative cost of drama because, in the immediate moment, most drama feels entirely justified. It presents itself as something you absolutely must address, something you must correct, something you must respond to, something you must fix. Yet, and when the emotional dust finally settles, you are left with the stark realization that it produced precisely nothing of value. No growth, no progress, no tangible improvement, no elevation, only debilitating fatigue and lingering regret. Where there is drama, there is an inherent, almost magnetic, invitation for a reaction to occur, and that, precisely, is the raison d'être of drama. It feeds voraciously on reaction. Without a sustained reaction, drama withers and dies. Without your precious attention, drama evaporates into thin air. Drama fundamentally requires your active emotional participation. And the very moment you profoundly understand that drama is essentially a demand for your emotional engagement, you gain the powerful leverage to starve it. You begin to grasp that consciously choosing to say nothing, to remain silent, is sometimes an infinitely stronger and more strategic move than articulating everything that surges through your mind. You begin to comprehend that allowing a volatile situation to simply pass through your awareness without emotionally hooking into it is not a manifestation of weakness, but a highly cultivated skill of profound self-mastery. Drama often germinates from seemingly small, innocuous provocations, a subtly sarcastic comment, a backhanded compliment, a discreet jab, a piece of idle gossip, an unnecessary comparison, or a minor disagreement that could have remained a productive conversation, but rapidly escalates into a full-blown conflict because fragile ego became involved. These micro-dramas unfold every single day in countless interactions, and most people, tragically, take the bait without even consciously noticing. Before they realize it, they are deeply invested in an argument that serves no discernible purpose, vigorously defending a position that holds no real importance, or desperately fighting for validation from individuals who, in truth, care very little. Drama thrives in environments where ego is perpetually fragile, and attention is easily and cheaply acquired. It flourishes where individuals prioritize being right over being genuinely effective. It finds fertile ground where people chase fleeting validation more than they pursue meaningful, sustainable results. The fastest, most effective way to extinguish drama is to unilaterally remove its audience, namely, you. If you steadfastly refuse to engage, you deny it the fuel it desperately needs. If you withhold elaborate explanations, you deny its sustenance. If you refrain from aggressive defense, you prevent its expansion. Most drama escalates continuously throw firewood onto the nascent flames. One individual casts a provocative spark, and the other, without thinking, pours on gasoline. Before long, it erupts into a raging inferno, either party truly intended. To effectively starve drama, you must cultivate unwavering emotional discipline. Emotional discipline does not imply passive avoidance of all conflict. On the contrary, it means you address genuine conflict with clarity and intention, but without inviting chaos. It means you resolve issues with decisive action, but without resorting to theatrical performance. It means you communicate with purpose, but without engaging in competitive one-upmanship. It means you prioritize crystalline clarity over histrionics. Drama, by its very nature, is theatrical and performative. Maturity, conversely, is quiet, measured, and authentic. Drama relentlessly seeks an audience. Maturity seeks a meaningful resolution. Drama craves escalation. Maturity diligently seeks profound understanding. Another pervasive source of drama is gossip. Gossip is drama that is skillfully transferred through conversation. It actively spreads fear, doubt, taints reputations with insecurity, and generates palpable tension. Gossip exists because it offers individuals a fleeting sense of involvement without demanding genuine responsibility. It provides shallow entertainment without imparting any real meaning. But the true cost of gossip is not paid in the immediate moment of indulgence. It is paid later, in the erosion of trust, the fracturing of relationships, and the insidious contamination of your precious mental space. When you actively participate in gossip, even passively listening, you willingly import other people's unresolved problems into your own mental and emotional landscape. And once they are inside, They reside there, silently draining the very focus and energy that could have been productively directed towards something real, something meaningful in your own life. Drama also frequently arises from over-explanation. When you habitually feel the compelling need to justify or explain yourself to everyone who casts a glance your way, you inadvertently open the floodgates to endless debates, questioning, and scrutiny. Not everyone, let us be clear, needs access to your intricate reasoning. Not everyone deserves access to your innermost intentions. Explanations should be strategically reserved for those who are genuinely affected by your decisions, not for those who are merely curious, judgmental, or seeking to poke holes in your narrative. When you consciously cease over-explaining, you effectively shrink the battlefield, and many dramatic fires extinguish themselves, simply because there is no longer any oxygen, any emotional fuel, left to keep them burning. There is also the ubiquitous drama that stems from routinely overreacting to minor inconveniences. Someone is unexpectedly late. Someone inadvertently forgets something trivial. Someone fails to respond to your message with the expected immediacy. Someone voices a disagreement with your idea. These are, in the grand scheme of things, minor, fleeting events that can, however, rapidly spiral into full-blown drama if your emotional response disproportionately inflates their significance. When you consistently treat small things as monumental issues, you inadvertently train your nervous system to exist in a perpetual state of chaos and hyperreactivity. The strongest, most composed individuals do not make small things bigger. On the contrary, they possess the profound capacity to break down genuinely big things into smaller, more manageable components. They de-escalate rather than escalate. And in doing so, they meticulously preserve their inner peace and mental tranquility. Here is the larger, more profound picture. Drama steals. It steals from your most ambitious goals. It steals from your boundless creativity, your unwavering discipline, your most cherished relationships, and your invaluable mental clarity. Individuals who are perpetually entangled in drama rarely make meaningful, sustained progress, because genuine progress demands sustained, unwavering focus. When your attention is constantly ricocheting between a multitude of emotional fires, you never possess sufficient internal fuel for profound, long-term work. Drama renders you perpetually reactive. Genuine greatness, conversely, unequivocally demands you to be proactively intentional. The very moment you consciously begin the process of starving drama, your life undergoes a profound and positive transformation. Conversations become notably shorter and more direct. Relationships evolve into healthier, more authentic connections. Boundaries, once porous, become crystalline and firm. Your mind, once a chaotic maelstrom of noise, becomes remarkably quieter and more focused. Individuals who thrive on chaos and emotional volatility either adjust their behavior in response to your newfound emotional sovereignty, or more often, they naturally drift away from your orbit. And your time, which was once relentlessly spent managing other people's unpredictable emotions, becomes abundantly available for the sacred work of meticulously building your own life. This is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of profound sovereignty. The old version of you undoubtedly reacted to every single spark of drama. The new, unrecognizable version of you, with calm discernment, allows those sparks to simply burn out on their own, unaddressed and unfed. That conscious choice does not merely protect your invaluable peace, it actively builds your power. The less you feed the insatiable beast of drama, the more abundant energy you possess for genuine growth, for meaningful creation, for intentional living. And that redirected, conserved energy is precisely what distinguishes perpetually distracted from the laser-focused, the impulsively reactive from the strategically intentional, and the ordinary existence from the truly unrecognizable, profoundly impactful life. Chapter 12. Stop begging for opinions and validation. One of the most insidious and subtle forms of emotional slavery is the pervasive, often unconscious, need for external validation. It operates quietly, often invisibly, and is, paradoxically, widely socially acceptable. People rarely openly admit to it, but a significant portion of their daily stress, their persistent frustration, and their deep-seated insecurity stems directly from this relentless pursuit of approval, from an urgent, internal craving for others to confirm that they are good enough, talented enough, worthy enough, intelligent enough, or successful enough. And precisely because validation, when received, often feels momentarily good, many individuals fail to recognize it for what it truly is, an elaborate and dangerous trap. The very moment you consciously or unconsciously require someone else's approval to feel secure, to feel complete, you implicitly hand them absolute control over your emotional reactions and, by extension, a significant portion of your inner peace. Validation, you see, is profoundly addictive because it offers a temporary, albeit superficial, solution to an inherent human discomfort, uncertainty. When you find yourself unsure about the wisdom of your decisions, your first impulse might be to solicit the opinions of others. When you feel insecure about your physical appearance, you unconsciously seek out compliments or reassuring feedback. When doubt creeps in about your inherent abilities, you desperately search for external reassurance. When you are uncertain about the value or impact of your work, you chase after likes, comments, and applause on social media. And like any quick, easy fix, validation delivers a momentary, satisfying rush. But the more you habituate yourself to relying on it, the more profoundly dependent and weaker you become without it. This constant external tether to confirmation systematically drains both your inherent confidence and your vital independence. Consider the inevitable consequence. If your emotional well-being needs someone else to tell that you are doing well, then, by the same token, that very same person, or anyone else, possesses the power to tell you that you are not doing well. If your sense of self-worth is contingent upon someone else telling you that you are enough, then they also possess the power to tell you that you are not enough. A validation, you must understand, opens the door in both directions. When you permit external praise to define your intrinsic worth, you automatically grant external criticism the power to demolish it. And that, my friends, is not true power. That is profound, debilitating dependency. There is also a deeper, more insidious psychological problem inherent in the relentless pursuit of external validation. It subtly compels you to perform for others, rather than genuinely live for yourself. Instead of engaging in activities because they hold profound meaning and value for you, you find yourself doing them because they will, presumably, look good to others or garner applause. Instead of meticulously building the authentic life you truly desire, you find yourself constructing a life you believe others will approve of. And nothing, let me assure you, drains authenticity faster or more thoroughly than this constant performance for an external audience. The more you perform for external approval, the further you inevitably drift from the truth of who you actually are, from your most authentic self. To decisively break free from the pervasive validation trap, you must diligently cultivate a fundamentally different internal orientation, internal referencing. Internal referencing means you rigorously evaluate your choices, your actions, and your very being through the unwavering lens of your own core values, your own authentic goals, and your own guiding principles, rather than through the fleeting, unpredictable reactions of others. Internal referencing asks the profound question, is this action, this choice, this path genuinely aligned with the person I aspire to be? Instead of the externally focused, will people like this? Will they approve? When internal referencing becomes your primary, unwavering compass, you naturally cease begging for external opinions and begin, with quiet confidence, to own your unique direction. There is a monumental distinction between genuinely seeking information and desperately seeking validation. Information, when sought with intention, actively helps you improve, to grow, to refine your approach. Validation, on the other hand, merely feeds a craving for acceptance. Information serves a clear, constructive purpose. Validation caters to an emotional hunger. You can, and should, consult experts for valuable information and informed perspectives. But validation often comes from anyone willing to grant you a moment of attention, however superficial. And that, precisely, is why the craving for validation can render you remarkably easy to manipulate. Anyone who is acutely aware of your need for approval can, with a single, well-placed comment, profoundly influence your emotional state, dictating your mood at will. Another debilitating side effect of validation seeking is pervasive hesitation. When you perceive that you need someone else's explicit approval before you can move forward, you inevitably move slowly. You overthink every step. You wait. You delay. You ask around endlessly, perpetually seeking external permission. And while you are caught in this anxious holding pattern, waiting for others to grant you permission to live your own life, someone else, an individual with no need for such external approval, decisively takes action and achieves the very results you desperately desired. Many individuals, not inherently lacking in talent or intelligence, they are simply waiting for someone, anyone, to clap before they are willing to begin their performance. Validation seeking is also inextricably tied to a deep-seated fear, the fear of disapproval, the fear of judgment, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of disappointing others. But here is an uncomfortable, yet profoundly liberating truth. You will be judged, regardless of your actions. You will disappoint someone at some point, inevitably. You will be misunderstood at various junctures in your life, no matter how clearly you articulate your intentions. There is simply no conceivable version of life where every single person approves of you universally. Even the most admirable figures in history have had their vehement critics. Even the most successful individuals faced their relentless doubters. Even the kindest and most compassionate souls have encountered their detractors. If you are perpetually waiting for universal approval before you dare to move forward, you are by definition waiting for a reality that simply does not exist. To decisively stop begging for external opinions and validation, you must assiduously build your inherent self-respect. And genuine self-respect does not magically materialize from a cascade of compliments. It is forged, brick by brick, through deliberate, consistent decisions. It stems from the quiet satisfaction of doing what you said you would do, of honoring your commitments to yourself. It arises from consciously taking responsibility for your choices and their outcomes. It is built through the unwavering courage to move purposefully toward your goals, even and especially when no one else is watching, when no applause is forthcoming. The more profoundly you respect yourself, the less you will feel the gnawing need for others to externally confirm your inherent worth. External validation then transmutes from a desperate requirement into a welcome, but not essential bonus. You also need to consciously learn to live with disapproval. The cultivated ability to be disliked, when necessary, and when aligned with your values, is an indispensable form of emotional strength. If your imperative is always to be universally liked, you will, without fail, never make genuinely strong, impactful decisions, because strong decisions often, by their very nature, upset someone. Individuals who achieve truly meaningful things inevitably disturb comfortable norms. They courageously challenge ingrained assumptions. They break stagnant patterns. They set firm, non-negotiable boundaries. They walk away from situations that others passively tolerate. None of these actions are universally approved, but all of them are integral to the courageous process of building a life that is, authentically, yours. Eventually, when you consciously and consistently stop begging for external opinions and validation, something truly significant changes within you. You begin to express yourself without feeling the need for prior permission. You pursue your most ambitious goals without the constant need for applause. You stand confidently in any room, occupying your space with natural presence, without instinctively shrinking or seeking to disappear. You cease exhaustively explaining your decisions to people who are not directly affected by them, or to those who are simply committed to misunderstanding you. And most importantly, you stop allowing the fleeting external opinions of others to dictate your intrinsic identity. The old version of you anxiously asked, "Do they approve of me?" The new, unrecognizable version of you confidently asks, "Is this truly right for me? Is this aligned with my deepest values and aspirations?" That profound shift, that internal reorientation, is precisely where emotional independence truly begins. And emotional independence is one of the strongest, most enduring forms of identity you can ever cultivate. Because once you possess the unwavering capacity to validate yourself, no one else, ever again, gets to decide who you are. Chapter 13. Respond with strategy, not emotion. One of the most pivotal and transformative upgrades you can make in your life is the conscious and consistent shift from impulsive, emotional reactions to deliberate, strategic responses. Emotional reactions are, by their very nature, immediate, raw, and primarily driven by how you feel in a fleeting moment. Strategic responses, conversely, are profoundly deliberate. They are consciously chosen. They are meticulously calibrated, based on what unequivocally serves your long-term interests, your enduring values, and your overarching mission. The stark difference between these two modes of operating is the difference between existing as a passive participant of life and consciously living as an active creator of your life. Strategy, you see, demands profound awareness, a quiet vigilance. Emotion, in its unthinking haste, requires only raw impulse. Motion, with its urgent clamor, asks, "How do I feel right now in this instant?" Strategy, with its calm, discerning gaze, asks, "What specific outcome am I diligently trying to create here? What is the desired end state?" That singular, fundamental shift in orientation, from a fleeting feeling to desired outcome, changes everything. When you consistently begin to think in terms of outcomes, instead of being hijacked by emotions, you cease merely reacting to the immediate moment and begin, with intentionality, to direct the entire situation. And the individual who consistently directs the situation is almost invariably the one who walks away with the distinct advantage. Responding with strategy does not, let me be clear, imply the suppression or denial of emotion. Emotion, in its purest form, is vital information. A surge of anger often signals that a deeply held boundary has been crossed or an injustice perceived. A wave of sadness informs you that something profoundly meaningful has been lost. A pang of fear whispers that something uncertain, potentially challenging, lies ahead. A flicker of jealousy might reveal what you genuinely value or secretly desire. A feeling of insecurity points to an area within yourself that requires further development. Emotion, then, provides you with crucial data, raw information. Strategy, however, is the conscious, intelligent process that decides what to do with that data. When individuals confuse the raw data of emotion with the intelligent directive for action, their reactions become predictably volatile, often self-sabotaging, and profoundly unpredictable. Consider, for example, the realm of conflict. In the heat of a disagreement, reacting purely emotionally almost always escalates the problem. Individuals become rigidly defensive, their voices rise, and they become more deeply invested in the fragile satisfaction of being right than in achieving a constructive resolution. But when you approach conflict strategically, you instinctively ask entirely different questions. What is the true underlying issue here? What does the other person genuinely need to feel or understand to move forward? What outcome would realistically benefit all sides involved, or at least serve my highest long-term interest? These questions, by their very nature, shift the focus from the ego-driven need to win a trivial argument to the more profound and valuable goal of thoughtfully resolving the underlying situation. And resolution, let me assure you, is infinitely more valuable and enduring than a fleeting, emotionally charged victory. Strategy also profoundly applies to the crucial element of timing. Not every response, no matter how well intended, should happen immediately. Sometimes, the wisest, most powerful thing you can do is to patiently wait. Wait until the initial emotional intensity settles. Wait until more pertinent information emerges. Wait until the other side, through their actions or continued words, inadvertently reveals their true intentions. Strategic individuals possess an innate understanding that timing is, in itself, a potent weapon. They do not rush to speak simply because there is an awkward silence. They do not rush to act simply because external pressure mounts. They do not rush to offer exhaustive explanations simply because someone demands immediate answers. Instead, they meticulously choose the precise moment that grants them the highest possible leverage, the greatest strategic advantage. Another indispensable component of strategic response is the conscious choice of the right medium for communication. Not every disagreement is best handled over a hasty text message. Not every important, nuanced conversation should occur in a public forum. Not every sensitive issue requires an audience. Emotional individuals, driven by immediacy, often choose the fastest, most convenient medium. Strategic individuals, driven by effectiveness, consciously choose the most impactful and appropriate medium. If clarity and understanding are paramount, they choose face-to-face dialogue or a focused phone call. If detailed documentation and accountability are crucial, they choose written communication. If the preservation of a relationship is the highest priority, they opt for a direct, empathetic meeting. The choice of medium is not arbitrary. It is meticulously chosen to serve the overarching mission. There is also a powerful discipline inherent in strategic restraint. Sometimes, the most intelligent and effective move is, in fact, no move at all. Consciously choosing not to respond can, in itself, be a profound and potent response. Silence, strategically deployed, can be a powerful statement. A deliberate withdrawal from a chaotic situation can be a clear, non-negotiable boundary. Patient observation, without immediate judgment, can be a sophisticated strategy, allowing you to gather intelligence. Emotional individuals often harbor a deep fear of silence because silence feels unsettling like an absence of control, a void of certainty. But strategic individuals, conversely, deeply value silence because silence creates invaluable space for crucial information to surface. Silence compels others to reveal their true character, their underlying intentions, their unmet needs. It also serves as a crucial safeguard, preventing you from transforming temporary, fleeting feelings into permanent, regrettable consequences. Strategic response is not, let me be unequivocally clear, about manipulation in a cynical or dishonest sense. It is, fundamentally, about unwavering intention. It is about consistently asking, what am I meticulously trying to build here? What truly matters most in this complex situation? What specific outcome is profoundly aligned with my long-term future, with the person I aspire to become? Emotional reactions are exclusively focused on the right now. Strategic responses are meticulously focused on what happens next. Maturity, you see, is often accurately measured by how far into the future your decisions and actions can thoughtfully see. Some individuals, trapped in reactivity, perceive only the next 5 seconds. Others, operating from a place of strategic wisdom, perceive the next 5 years, even the next 5 decades. That profound difference in temporal horizon explains why some individuals consistently create progress and enduring legacies, while others perpetually generate chaos and regret. Responding strategically also serves as an indispensable shield, rigorously protecting your most cherished relationships. When you react purely emotionally, in the heat of the moment, you might utter words you do not truly mean, or you might inadvertently escalate something that could have been handled with calm and reason. Emotional damage, let it be understood, is often far more difficult to repair than situational damage. A problem, objectively, can often be fixed. Words, once spoken in anger, sometimes cannot be genuinely taken back, their echoes lingering for years. Strategic responses, by their very design, slow the emotional tempo, creating space for you to preserve what truly matters, the integrity of your relationships, without sacrificing your own dignity or core values. Another profound benefit of cultivating strategic response is its undeniable influence on how you are perceived by others. People naturally respect those who do not react impulsively, who possess a quiet, inner steadiness. People instinctively trust those who maintain their composure, even under the most intense pressure. People readily follow those who can think with crystalline clarity when everyone else around them is succumbing to panic. This is not about trying to superficially impress anyone. It is about demonstrably proving, through your consistent behavior, that you are not controlled by the external environment. That, my friends, is authentic power. Not the loud, chaotic, performative kind of power that seeks immediate attention, but the quiet, enduring kind that meticulously builds an unassailable reputation over time. To truly master the art of strategic responding, commit to diligently using 3 core questions whenever something triggers an emotional surge within you. What specific outcome do I actually want to create here? Will reacting emotionally, impulsively, genuinely get me closer to that outcome? What measured, deliberate response will increase my leverage and influence instead of decreasing it? When you consistently begin to evaluate situations through this powerful, strategic lens, something truly remarkable begins to happen. All life becomes demonstrably less reactive and profoundly more intentional. You cease fighting battles that hold no real significance. You stop exhaustively over-explaining yourself to every curious ear. You stop engaging in futile arguments with individuals who are deeply committed to misunderstanding you. You cease reflexively defending yourself against every passing opinion or critique. You learn to conserve your invaluable energy, redirecting it with precision towards the things that genuinely move your life forward. The old version of you reacted emotionally, had new frustration, wondered why things consistently became messy and complicated. The new, unrecognizable version of you responds strategically and with quiet satisfaction, observes life becoming more profoundly aligned, more intentionally directed. That profound shift does not render you cold or unfeeling. It renders you powerfully effective. And effectiveness, let me assure you, is the primary architect that builds the kind of life that eventually makes you truly unrecognizable to the person you used to be. Chapter 14. Turn hard times into an advantage. Everyone, universally, yearns to maintain composure when life flows smoothly, when carefully laid plans unfurl as intended, when those in their orbit are agreeable and supportive, and when results perfectly mirror effort. Yet, the true measure of composure, of self-mastery, manifests most profoundly when the intricate machinery of life inevitably breaks, when disappointments arrive unbidden, when the unsettling spectre of uncertainty casts its long shadow, and when destiny hurls challenges at you that you unequivocally did not choose. Hard times are far more than a mere test of your raw endurance. They are, in a more profound and transformative sense, an exacting examination of how adeptly you control your reactions when external pressure becomes not an option, but an undeniable, inescapable reality. And the fundamental distinction between those who emotionally crumble under adversity and those who, paradoxically, grow stronger because of it, is not rooted in luck or inherent talent, but in a cultivated, strategic approach. These individuals possess the rare and powerful skill to transmute hard times into a profound advantage rather than passively succumbing to them as an insurmountable crisis. The vast majority of people, when confronted with the chilling winds of hard times, react with a predictable cascade of emotions. They complain bitterly with a sense of entitlement. They panic indiscriminately, losing all sense of proportion. They reflexively assign blame to external circumstances, to other individuals, to fate itself. They freeze, becoming paralyzed by fear and indecision. They offer endless explanations and convoluted justifications, subtly deflecting any personal responsibility. They desperately seek distractions, attempting to numb themselves to the harsh confrontation with reality. But emotional reactions to adversity, almost without exception, rarely produce genuinely useful or constructive outcomes. While they may offer a fleeting, temporary soothing to the bruised ego, they do not, in any meaningful way, alter the underlying situation. They do not strengthen your resolve. They do not propel anything forward. Hard times are not resolved by mere emotional expression. They are, instead, conquered by profound emotional leadership. The profound alchemy of turning adversity into a strategic advantage commences with one pivotal mindset shift. Obstacles are not interruptions to your carefully charted course. They are, in fact, invaluable information. They serve as diagnostic tools, ruthlessly revealing precisely where your systems are weak, where your skill sets are incomplete, where your underlying assumptions were tragically unrealistic, and what fundamental changes are now unequivocally required. Without the abrasive friction of adversity, you would rarely, if ever, be compelled to meticulously examine these critical, often uncomfortable, aspects of your life. Comfort, you see, is a master of disguise. It deftly hides weaknesses, allowing them to fester unseen. Problems, however, brutally expose them, dragging them into the harsh light of day. And once something is unequivocally exposed, it can finally be meticulously improved, refined, and strengthened. Reflect for a moment. Pop on any story of profound human transformation that you deeply admire. That transformation did not magically manifest during a leisurely vacation. It did not unfold effortlessly when every aspect of life was perfectly aligned and proceeding without a hitch. It certainly did not occur when the path ahead was perfectly paved and devoid of any struggle. Instead, it emerged precisely when something broke, when a meticulously crafted plan spectacularly failed, when an unexpected setback, seemingly insurmountable, abruptly appeared, when destiny, with a cruel twist, exerted immense and inescapable pressure. Hard times, you see, compel profound, often painful, reflection. Reflection, diligently pursued, generates crystalline clarity. Clarity, once attained, fuels decisive, intentional action. And decisive action, consistently applied, produces undeniable, resilient growth. There is, fundamentally, no genuine growth without friction. Friction, in this profound context, is simply the unavoidable tax of true, meaningful progress. To effectively leverage adversity to your profound advantage, you must, with unwavering discipline, resist the pervasive, ego-driven urge to personalize it. Hard times are not irrefutable evidence that the universe is maliciously conspiring against you, that you are inherently not good enough, or that the world is fundamentally, universally unfair. Hard times are, in fact, a universal human experience, shared by all, from the lowliest to the most elevated. The only true differentiating factor is how individuals consciously choose to interpret them. One person perceives adversity as a direct, malevolent attack, an unfair punishment, a cruel twist of fate. Another person, with a more evolved and strategic perspective, perceives adversity as rigorous training, an invaluable opportunity to hone their skills, to strengthen their character, to deepen their wisdom. And the individual who consistently views it as training will, inevitably, outgrow and outperform the individual who consistently views it as a personal attack. Another crucial component of utilizing adversity to your advantage is learning to deliberately slow down your initial knee-jerk reaction. When something genuinely bad happens, your nervous system, wired for primitive survival, instinctively craves speed. It demands a fast explanation, immediate comfort, a swift escape. But the very first explanation you instinctively offer yourself is often profoundly wrong, based on fear and incomplete information, rather than objective fact. And the initial solution you impulsively attempt is often emotionally driven, rather than strategically sound. When you consciously pause, you create invaluable space for superior, more rational thinking to emerge. When you create that space, you cease reacting solely to the immediate pain and begin, instead, to respond strategically to the underlying problem. Adversity also serves as a potent revealer of character, not primarily to the external world, but more importantly, to yourself. In these moments of intense challenge, you discover, with stark clarity, whether you possess a tendency to quit easily or to persevere with unwavering resolve. You learn whether you panic indiscriminately under pressure or maintain a steady hand and a clear mind. You uncover whether you habitually search for convenient excuses or diligently seek robust, actionable solutions. You discern whether your actions are primarily driven by the pursuit of fleeting comfort or by a deeper, more enduring sense of unwavering purpose. Most people, let it be said, do not truly know the depths of their own character until adversity unequivocally shows up, because character is not meticulously built in the serene realm of theory. It is forged and proven in the intense fires of conflict, struggle, and undeniable challenge. Hard times also demand a profound sense of responsibility. Responsibility in this context does not equate to blame or self-flagellation. Responsibility means absolute ownership. Ownership of your next move, your next thought, your next action. You are not, let us be clear, necessarily responsible for every single event that happens to you. But you are, unequivocally, 100% responsible for how you consciously choose to respond to it. And the very moment you fully embrace this responsibility for your response, you cease passively waiting for life to magically fix itself. You transform into the proactive agent who adjusts, who adapts, who learns, who recalibrates, who with unwavering resolve gets up again. After this, authentic power. Turning adversity into a strategic advantage also necessitates the deliberate extraction of profound value from pain. Pain, in its various forms, is not merely a negative sensation to be avoided. Pain is invaluable information. Pain is crucial feedback. Pain is a vital message, signaling precisely where your evolution, your growth, your transformation is now unequivocally required. The majority of people instinctively try to numb pain, to avoid it, to suppress it. But pain avoided, let it be understood, is merely pain delayed, often accumulating into deeper, more intractable issues. When you consciously choose to learn from your pain, to embrace its lessons, it transmutes into powerful fuel, propelling your growth and transformation. When you choose to ignore it, pain, instead, becomes residual trauma, an emotional residue. Residue makes you heavy, bitter, and perpetually reactive. Fuel, however, makes you stronger, wiser, and profoundly more intentional. Consider the story of Alice Heard's Summer, who, imprisoned in a concentration camp during World War II, found joy and laughter daily with her son, or Nick Vujicic, born without limbs, who overcame profound despair to become a motivational speaker and happy family man. Their ability to find meaning and joy amidst unimaginable adversity is a testament to the power of internal narrative and chosen response. Another powerful way to leverage adversity is through the relentless pursuit of direction and clarity. Hard times, by their very nature, force decisive decisions. They compel you to unequivocally choose what truly matters and what, in the grand scheme of things, does not. They act as a ruthless, yet ultimately beneficial, filter, eliminating superficial distractions. They expose and remove unnecessary people or commitments from your inner circle. They shatter comfortable illusions, forcing you to confront reality. Clarity, let it be known, is an expensive commodity. You rarely acquire it for free. Adversity, in its demanding wisdom, is often one of the prices you pay for the priceless gift of crystalline clarity. Once you possess that clarity, your reactions become surgically sharper, your priorities become impeccably cleaner, and your life, in its entirety, becomes more profoundly aligned and purposeful. The undeniable truth is this: hard times will, inevitably, visit everyone, eventually. You do not get the luxury of avoiding them, but you absolutely get to choose what they ultimately produce within you. You can allow adversity to shrink you into a smaller, more fearful version of yourself, or to powerfully strengthen you. You can let it render you bitter and resentful, or transform you into a wiser, more compassionate being. You can let it break you into irreparable pieces, or to meticulously rebuild you into a more resilient, more formidable structure. Many of the strongest, most composed, and least reactive individuals you will ever have the privilege to meet did not become that way because life was gentle and accommodating. They became that way precisely because life was brutally, unyieldingly not. The old version of you undoubtedly took adversity personally, reacting to it with a predictable cascade of emotions, allowing it to define your worth. The new, unrecognizable version of you, however, sees adversity as invaluable material for profound growth, for essential learning, for strategic recalibration, and for unshakable resilience. And that profound shift in perspective, that internal alchemy, is one of the clearest, most undeniable signs that you are meticulously becoming unrecognizable to the person you used to be. Chapter 15. Let silence and results announce who you are. There arrives a pivotal juncture in your evolution, a profound threshold, where you no longer feel the compulsive need to argue, to explain, to justify, to defend, or to desperately chase external recognition. You ascend to a level of profound internal clarity, where your vital energy undergoes a magnificent transmutation, shifting its focus from the exhausting pursuit of proving your worth to the quiet, powerful work of building something undeniable, from incessant talking to deliberate, impactful doing. From declaring your inherent worth to consistently and unequivocally demonstrating it. This chapter is dedicated to guiding you towards that sacred point, that apex of self-mastery, where strategic silence becomes your most eloquent language and your undeniable results become your most compelling introduction. Silence in our hyperconnected, perpetually noisy world is profoundly underrated. People often feel an overwhelming compulsion to constantly post, to announce every fleeting thought, to defend every perceived slight, to explain themselves endlessly. They comment on everything, respond to everyone, desperately attempt to correct every misunderstanding, and fiercely fight every misrepresentation. But the truth, in its elegant simplicity, is this: when you continuously expend energy defending your character, you inadvertently drain the very power, the very resource that could have been meticulously invested in constructing something so undeniable, so demonstrably impactful, that no defense would ever be necessary. Silence, when consciously deployed with intentionality, is not an act of passive avoidance. On the contrary, it is an act of profound discipline. It is a manifestation of unwavering self-control. It is a resolute refusal to squander your finite energy on conversations and conflicts that, ultimately, lead nowhere productive. When you possess an unwavering clarity about your overarching mission, you naturally cease feeling the compulsive need to announce every single move, every minute detail of your journey. Announcing your every step, you see, often invites superficial attention. Attention, in turn, frequently brings forth a cacophony of opinions. Opinions generate noise, and noise, incessantly, leads to distraction. And distraction, let it be clear, is the insidious force that relentlessly pulls you away from the authentic, purposeful life you are meticulously striving to build. Consider the most influential and powerful individuals in any field, be it historical figures, contemporary leaders, or masters of their craft. They are rarely the ones who speak the loudest, who dominate every conversation with boisterous declarations. Instead, they are almost universally the ones who work the longest, who consistently put in the most diligent effort, often in quiet, unassuming spaces. They move with quiet purpose, not because they are hiding their intentions, but precisely because they are laser-focused on their objectives. They possess an innate understanding that fleeting attention is not the ultimate goal. Demonstrable, consistent progress is the true prize. When you consciously cease reacting to every passing comment, every piece of unsolicited criticism, something truly incredible begins to occur. People, in their curiosity, begin to wonder. They wonder what you are quietly building. They wonder why you remain so remarkably calm and composed amidst the chaos. They wonder what profound insights or strategic knowledge you possess that they do not. This subtle unpredictability, this quiet self-possession, creates an intriguing curiosity. Curiosity, in turn, often engenders a deeper, more genuine respect. The less you feel compelled to reveal through words, through explanations, the more powerfully you reveal through your consistent, impactful behavior. And behavior, let it be unequivocally stated, is always more convincingly persuasive than mere conversation. This does not mean, of course, that you become perpetually silent when something genuinely important, something that truly matters, needs to be articulated. It means you exercise astute discernment, choosing precisely where your voice holds true value and impact. Your voice should not be squandered explaining yourself endlessly to individuals who are deeply committed to misunderstanding you. It should not be wasted attempting to prove your inherent worth to people who harbor no genuine intention of respecting it. It should not be thrown into the wind attempting to persuade individuals who are not even truly listening, whose minds are already made up. Strategic silence is born from the profound understanding that not every battle requires your sword. Indeed, some battles, when starved of your reactive energy, will simply collapse on their own, dissolving into irrelevance. Results, on the other hand, require no debate, no elaborate defense, no convoluted justification. Genuine results speak a powerful, undeniable language that cannot be twisted, distorted, or dismissed by someone else's fleeting opinion. When you meticulously accomplish something real, something tangible, the very same individuals who once harbored doubts, who perhaps even actively criticized you, are compelled, often silently, to acknowledge your achievement. The persistent criticism fades. The idle gossip dies a natural death. The distracting noise dissipates. Results, let it be remembered, possess the inherent power to rewrite entire narratives. They effectively shut down arguments. They profoundly shift external perception, often without you uttering a single defensive word. People may, for a time, dismiss your ambitious goals, but they cannot, absolutely cannot, dismiss your demonstrable growth. They may question your chosen direction, but they cannot, absolutely cannot, question your ultimate destination once you have decisively arrived. They may initially judge your quiet resolve, your strategic silence, but they cannot, absolutely cannot, ignore your consistent, undeniable progress when it becomes too self-evident to be overlooked. When you consciously choose to let your actions, your achievements, your demonstrable impact announce your authentic identity, the world, my friends, has no other choice but to profoundly adjust how it perceives you. This is precisely why maturity often feels like talking less, not because you possess less to articulate, less to contribute, but because you have transcended the need for external validation. You no longer feel the compulsive urge to win every single argument, to correct every perceived slight, to prove your intelligence, your kindness, your strength, or your noble intentions. You possess an unshakable internal knowledge of who you are at your core. And when you possess that profound internal certainty, external noise, with all its clamor and demands, utterly loses its power over you. There is another, deeper layer to this profound power. Silence rigorously protects your emotional state. When you deliberately choose not to react immediately, you consciously create a vital buffer, a crucial space, between yourself and the external situation. That buffer grants you the invaluable space to think strategically, rather than react impulsively. It grants you the space to choose unwavering dignity over fleeting impulse. It grants you the space to meticulously align your response with your deepest values, rather than being dictated by raw, fleeting emotions. Silence, let it be understood, is not empty. It is profoundly full of intelligence, full of strategic wisdom, full of potential. Silence also undeniably strengthens your inherent presence. When you speak less, you naturally observe more. You understand more. You perceive subtle dynamics and insights that other people, too busy talking or reacting, invariably miss. Presence, that quiet, magnetic aura, grows exponentially in the space where incessant noise gracefully disappears. Individuals who are genuinely comfortable in silence become powerful, not through performative displays, but through a natural, unassuming gravitas. They do not compete for fleeting attention. They command it effortlessly, organically. Now imagine coupling that profound, strategic silence with undeniable, tangible results, real, concrete achievements. And you, my friends, become an unstoppable force. The world, in its often loud and chaotic rhythm, is built for the boisterous, the attention-seeking. But it bends, inevitably, for the disciplined, the intentional, the results-driven. Loud people may, for a time, gather superficial attention. Disciplined people, however, gather enduring respect. Loud people may win the fleeting moment. Disciplined people, with quiet resolve, win the enduring future. Think back to the old version of yourself, the version that reacted quickly, explained endlessly, fought unnecessary battles, desperately tried to win every argument, and constantly sought to be understood and validated by others. Now, envision the version you are diligently becoming, the version that strategically conserves energy for truly meaningful endeavors, the version that does not desperately chase external approval, the version that works quietly, with unwavering focus, the version that consciously chooses clear direction over distracting noise, the version that allows its undeniable results to introduce them to the world. When you reach this elevated level of self-mastery, you no longer feel the need to declare, "I will prove them wrong." Instead, with quiet, unwavering confidence, you simply state, "They will see when they see," and that profound shift, that internal reorientation, is ultimate freedom. Freedom from external noise, freedom from emotional dependency, freedom from the tyranny of unnecessary reactive behaviors. The old you craved fleeting attention. The new you relentlessly pursues demonstrable progress. The old you demanded external validation. The new you relentlessly pursues profound mastery. The old you talked, the new you builds. And when you build consistently, silently, intentionally, your undeniable results will speak a language the world cannot and will not ignore. That, my friends, is the unequivocal moment you become truly unrecognizable. Conclusion: the unrecognizable self-transformation, in its most profound and authentic sense, is rarely loud and never instantaneous. It does not manifest in a single dramatic moment of blinding clarity or a sudden, theatrical breakthrough. Instead, it unfolds quietly, meticulously, through 1,000 small, almost imperceptible decisions, made day after day, decisions about how you choose to react, how you consciously interpret challenging moments, how you adeptly manage discomfort, how you strategically choose your battles, and how you diligently discipline your surging emotions. This audiobook has not been about the unattainable pursuit of perfection. It has been about the achievable, transformative journey of becoming strategic, intentional, and emotionally independent. Because once you master your reactions, you irrevocably change the entire trajectory of your life. Take a moment to reflect on who you were before you consciously began to internalize these powerful principles. Perhaps you took everything personally, carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Maybe you reacted impulsively to every casual comment, every minor disagreement, every piece of criticism, allowing them to dictate your mood and actions. Perhaps you felt an incessant need to explain yourself, to justify your every move, to seek constant external validation. Maybe you routinely fought battles that, in hindsight, held no real significance, or tried to win arguments at the expense of far more valuable outcomes, like peace, trust, or genuine connection. It is possible you unknowingly handed over control of your precious emotional state to the unpredictable whims of the world around you. There is no shame in that. Many people live their entire lives perpetually enslaved by these patterns. But you, now, are no longer that person. Not because the external tapestry of life miraculously became easier, but because you, with unwavering resolve, became significantly harder to knock off your unshakable center. The real strength forged on this profound journey has been the cultivated ability to pause deliberately instead of lashing out in anger. It has been the courage to question your assumptions instead of blindly accepting them. It has been the wisdom to respond with intention instead of reacting with impulse. And crucially, it has been the liberating power to let go of what does not serve you instead of allowing it to break you. Strength has been the profound realization that strategic silence can protect you, and that undeniable results can and should represent you. Strength has been the conscious choice of long-term power over fleeting short-term comfort. Strength has been the discerning insight that not every noise in the world deserves your precious attention, and not every unsolicited opinion merits your invaluable energy. Strength has been the mastery of navigating conflict with grace, without ever inviting chaos into the sacred space of your identity. When you consistently control your reactions, you reclaim something truly invaluable that most people lose without ever noticing: sovereignty over your emotional world. Without that inner sovereignty, you are perpetually carried by capricious circumstances, pulled by the egos of others, triggered by every passing noise, and unduly influenced by the shifting currents of your environment. With sovereignty, however, you remain immutably grounded, you remain powerfully intentional, you remain profoundly composed. Life, let us be clear, does not cease to be difficult. People do not magically become perfectly predictable. Challenges do not mysteriously disappear. But your response, your cultivated internal strength, becomes undeniably more powerful than any external situation. And once that profound shift occurs, life, in its infinite wisdom, begins to bend in your favor. Now, imagine, with potent clarity, what happens when this deliberate way of living compounds over time. A single day of quiet restraint might feel small, almost insignificant. A single moment of unwavering composure might seem trivial in the grand scheme. But months of consistent composure forge an unassailable reputation. Years of unwavering composure solidify into an unshakable identity. And that deeply ingrained identity, my friends, shapes nothing less than your ultimate destiny. There is a profound reason why the core message of this audiobook emphasizes becoming unrecognizable, because true, meaningful evolution is not merely when others externally notice that you have changed. It is when you look back at your past self and genuinely, profoundly, barely recognize the version of you who once reacted to everything, who was carried by every emotional wave. Becoming unrecognizable is not an act of arrogance or a declaration of superiority. It is a humble, yet powerful, act of outgrowing the very patterns, the very limitations that once relentlessly controlled you. It is about diligently building a version of yourself that your past self would look upon with profound admiration. A version of yourself that does not break under pressure, does not crumble under criticism, does not collapse under misunderstanding, and does not lose its unwavering direction under provocation. A version of yourself who is implicitly trusted, universally respected, emotionally stable, profoundly disciplined, and unequivocally capable of leading both themselves and their surrounding environment with grace and power. If there is one singular message, one timeless truth, to carry with you from this profound journey, it is this: your reactions are not small, they are not trivial, they are not merely fleeting emotional responses, they are in fact the very architecture, the foundational blueprint of your future. Every reaction is a conscious choice, and every conscious choice is an indelible thread that meticulously weaves the fabric of your character, shapes the quality of your relationships, influences the trajectory of your opportunities, and ultimately defines your destiny. Control your reactions, and you will control far more than you ever dared to realize. This transformative journey does not conclude here with the final words of this audiobook. It continues relentlessly every single day, in your conversations, in your conflicts, in your challenges, in your moments of quiet solitude, in your periods of unsettling uncertainty, and in your triumphs and successes. Every day you will be presented with the profound choice to succumb to reactive impulse or to embrace strategic response, to chase fleeting comfort or to build enduring power. Choose wisely. Choose deliberately. Choose with unwavering intention the magnificent version of yourself you are meticulously becoming. And with time, the old you will gracefully fade, not forgotten, but profoundly surpassed. And the world, in its awe, will encounter a person who did not demand recognition, who did not beg for approval, and who did not loudly announce their transformation. A person whose unwavering composure, strategic restraint, and undeniable results introduced them eloquently and powerfully, long before they ever spoke a single word. That, my friends, is how you truly become unrecognizable.